from the market you came from and allow us to debate what we are debating, Honorable Speaker. And I had stated you will have your say and you will say it, Honorable Speaker. And I was saying accountability will be key under the administration of William Ruto. And I want to challenge all of us in this House, Honorable Speaker. Let us play our oversight role. Honorable Speaker, Kenyans will bear as witness, Honorable Speaker, that as we vetted, Honorable Speaker, the Speaker as a chair moderated without regard to political affiliation. Ourselves, we vetted these cabinet secretaries without regard to our political affiliations, and we put questions to them to be able to ascertain their suitability, Honorable Speaker, and that is how we found all of them suitable, Honorable Speaker, to be able to serve in public office, with the exception of what I have stated, Honorable Speaker, and what I have said is now in the hands of all of us here. Honorable Speaker, with those very many remarks, I want to beg to move this motion, Honorable Speaker, and I want to request the Deputy Leader of Majority, the Honorable Owen Baya, to second the motion, as I thank Honorable Speaker, all the members of the committee, and indeed all the members of the House, and as I beg that we do consider and approve these nominees. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Owen Baya.
All right, yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor to second this motion on the appointment of the Cabinet Secretaries. Mr. Speaker, I would like first to congratulate you for taking time to guide the committee throughout all those many days and spending many hours actually to chair the meeting and to guide the committee until we produce the final report. I would also like to thank the Leader of Majority and the Leader of Minority and the teams that came in to form the appointment committee of this House for sitting for those many hours, and the staff of Parliament who braved many hours to ensure that we were able to produce this report. Mr. Speaker, this report is pursuant to Article 152 of the Constitution, where the President has the power to nominate Cabinet Secretaries, but also it is paramount that Parliament vests them, looks at them, and eventually nominates them for appointment by the President. In his wisdom, Mr. Speaker, in his wisdom, the President chose to pick Kenyans to run the cabinet, Kenyans from all walks of life. In his balance, he looked at the general balance, he looked at gender, he looked at the whole country and said, this is the team that I would like to work with to move this country forward. Honorable Speaker, when you look at the cabinet that President William Ruto appointed, he put everybody there. He looked at politicians, gave them some slots. He looked at technocrats, gave them some slots. So when we were vetting them with the perspective and the prism that these are Kenyans from a different walk of life and they would present themselves differently at the vetting table. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, when the Appointments Committee looks at them, what law do they use? They use the Public Appointments Act, which is an act that allows us to look at certain aspects. What is their education background? Do they qualify in terms of their diversity? Do they qualify in terms of the qualifications that the President has looked at? And if you look at all these cabinet secretaries that were nominated by the President, you see people, Kenyans who are ready to serve this country as they presented themselves during vetting. Mr. Speaker, the issues that the Minority Report brings out on the nomination of one Aisha Jumwa and Mitika Linturi. The report, if you look at the main report, it actually is very clear on the findings of the committee on appointments. That one, the allegations against Aisha Jumwa have been dropped. The family itself withdrew the charges. The allegations against Mitika Linturi, these are cases that are civil cases, they're civil matters. Many of the members here, in this house, in this chamber, have very many civil cases out there, but they do not impede them from doing their work as honorable members. Even if you look at the past cabinet, very many of them had civil matters, civil cases. They did not impede them from doing their work. The civil cases that are hanging around Mithika Linturi will not in any way impede him from doing his work. He had these cases even when he was a senator. But today, to try to crucify Mithika Linturi on the basis of civil matters is double speak on the members that have written the minority report. Even those members here that wrote the minority report themselves have civil cases. They have issues, but it doesn't impede them from doing their work. So today, to say that Mithika Linturi is unfit to hold public office because of civil matters, Mr. Speaker, is stating what is not right. Mr. Speaker.
Yes, order, Honorable Bayer. Honorable Wandai.
Mr. Speaker, it's never my nature to interrupt colleagues while on the floor. But if you listen keenly to the Honorable Owen Bayer, he has indicated that the members of the Committee on Appointments who have drafted dissenting or minority report have engaged in what he has termed as double speak. Mr. Speaker, I find that to be totally offensive and unparliamentary. So we do kindly ask Mr. Honorable Owen Bayer to remain true to the calling of a parliamentarian and stick to the issues at hand and observe utmost decorum here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable Owen,
I will stick to...
it is entirely within the competence of any member of any committee
Thank you.
to dissent and write a minority report.
Thank you.
So don't cast aspersions against your colleagues.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to thank colleagues because of the bipartisan approach to the work that we did. It was many hours, but we are able to agree on very many things and disagreed only on 3. And I think that is something that we would like to commend the committee. On the issue of Malonza, looking at her education background, her experience, and looking at the work that she has done for the many years that she has been in public service, I think she has done understanding work. Work that prompted the president to say, this is somebody that we can work with in cabinet. This is somebody that can run a cabinet slot in this government. But during presentation, and as she presented herself, and many things happen when you face a barrage of cameras and very many people asking many questions. There are things that happen to people, and this happened to one Penina Malonza. But should we condemn Penina Malonza because of the 1.5 hours that she appeared before the committee?
Yes, there's a point of order. Is that Honorable Bandi? Order, Honorable Bayer. Honorable Bandi. Give Honorable Bandi the microphone.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, really it wasn't my intention to interrupt Honorable Owen Bayer, who was moving, or rather seconding the motion. But Mr. Speaker, there's a procedure of moving and seconding motions in this House. We should not entertain where the mover and the seconder are moving the motion and they are like opposing the same motion. If the committee has agreed or has made a decision on rejecting a candidate or a nominee, then how does it come about that the same members, actually the mover and the seconder, are talking like they are faulting their own report, Mr. Speaker? It is confusing this House. Leave it to us. We will know what we will do with it. If we feel, like I'm sure many of us feel, that there is no way we are going to reject one member out of 24, we are going to approve them all. But do you are the same people who have rejected. So don't give excuses. Don't look good. You have rejected that lady called Malonza. Please don't look good. Live with it, move the motion, second it properly, then leave it to us. Mr. Speaker, I find it completely out of order.
You've made your point.
Thank you.
Owen, you've had the sentiments.
We will save her.
Mr. Speaker, the point I'm trying to make is our report should not condemn one Penina Malonza. That after this report,
Yes, Honorable Mudenyo. Give Honorable Mudenyo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I have tremendous respect to Honorable Baya. We served with him here in the last parliament, and he came across as a very sober-minded and objective member of parliament. I do not know what has happened in the travel from Damascus to wherever it is. Honestly speaking, I can't understand what he's talking about. First of all, he is seconding the report. Secondly, in a way, he is opposing the report. Can he come straight forward and tell us that now they have changed their mind, they want to withdraw the report or amend the report so they do not talk about they don't reject Malonza. Let's just come out. So beating around the bush, Honorable Baya. You are beyond this. At your age and level of exposure, you are beyond this. Just eat the humble pie and tell us it was by mistake, we are coerced, but now we have changed our mind. We want to move the report in amended form. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Baya.
thank you very much. What I'm trying to do,
Avoid raising unnecessary passions in the House.
Mr. Speaker, what I would like to say is that I'm trying to buttress one thing, very simple, that the report as it is in the hands of the House, and the House will make a decision on the report. And that is what I'm saying. And therefore, in concluding my remarks, Mr. Speaker, I would urge this House to look at this report soberly, to look at the individuals that have been nominated soberly, give this country a cabinet as soon as possible so that this country can move. There are very many people there, the hustlers in this country, who are looking at an opportunity for this cabinet to start work. This cabinet has work cut for itself to move this economy from the point it is to the next level. Kenyans are suffering. There are very many Kenyans today who have very many pending bills. We need a new sheriff, a treasury. We need cabinet secretaries in the ministries so that they can move this country. The hustlers in this country are looking to the presidency of William Ruto to start working. Mr. Speaker, I beg to second this report. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, I now propose the question, which is that taking into consideration the findings of the Committee on Appointments in its first report on the vetting of nominees for approval as Cabinet Secretaries, the Secretary to the Cabinet and the Attorney General laid on the table of the House today, Tuesday, October 24, 2022, and pursuant to the provisions of Articles 152.2, 154.2a, and 156.2 of the Constitution and Sections 3 and 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, this House approves the appointment of the following persons as Cabinet Secretaries. It's a bit long, you may have to see. One, the Honorable Wycliffe Musalia Mudavadi, EGH, Office of the Prime Cabinet Minister. Two, the Honorable Professor Kithure Kindiki, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Interior and National Administration. Three, Professor Njuguna Ndungu, CBS, Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning. Four, the Honorable Alice Muthoni Wahome, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. 5, the Honorable Aden Bare Duale, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Defense. 6, Ms. Rebecca Miano, MBS, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of East African Community, the ASALs and Regional Development. 7, the Honorable Alfred Nganga Mutua, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs. 8, the Honorable Aisha Juma Karisa Katana, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action. 9, the Honorable Moses K. Kuria, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Trade, Investment and Industry. 10, the Honorable Rosalinda Soipan Tuya, CBS, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Environment and Forestry. 11, the Honorable Onesimus Kipchumba Murkomen, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Roads, Transport and Public Works. 12, Mr. Zakaria Mwangi Njeru, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Lands, Housing and Urban Development. 13, Ms. Susan Nahumiche Wafola, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Health. 14, the Honorable Franklin Mithika Linturi, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Agriculture, Livestock Development. 15, Mr. Eliud Okech Owalo, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Information, Communication and Digital Economy. 16, the Honorable Ezekiel Machogu Ombaki, CBS, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Education. 17, Mr. Davis Kimtai Chirchir, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Energy and Petroleum. 18, the Honorable Ababu Namwamba, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Youth Affairs, Sports and the Arts. 19, Mr. Simon Kiprono Chelugui, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Cooperatives and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, MSME, Development. 20, the Honorable Salim Mvuria, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Mining, the Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs. 21, the Honorable Florence Chepngetich Kosgei Bore, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Labor and Social Protection. Approves the appointment of the Honorable Justin Bertrand Muturi Njoka, EGH, as the Attorney General. Approves the appointment of Ms. Mercy Kiil Wanjao, CBS, as the Secretary to the Cabinet. And lastly, rejects the appointment of the Honorable Penina Malonza, OGW, as the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage. Yes, Honorable Pukose.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Moving on a procedural motion on limitation of debate that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, debate on the special motion under Order Number 10 be limited to a maximum of not more than 5 hours, with each member speaking for not more than 10 minutes, except the leader of the minority party, who will be limited to not more than 20 minutes. Honorable Speaker, on 12th of October, this House passed a motion on the procedural in which the debate was to be limited for not more than 3 hours. So what I'm actually doing is to increase it to not more than 5 hours, because if you limit it to 3 hours, then members will not have adequate time. Then secondly, in the same motion, the leader of a minority was given 15 minutes. In this one, I've given him, my motion seeks to give him 20 minutes because we need to have an adequate debate on this matter. So thank you, Honorable Speaker. I move and ask Honorable Jeb Konga to second.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I second, and in particular because the Honorable Juliet Mohammed has said good. So the motion itself must be good. Thank you, Speaker.
Honorable members, I propose the question that pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 97-1, debate on the special motion under Order number 10 be limited to a maximum of not more than 5 hours, with each member speaking for not more than 10 minutes, except the leader of the minority party, who will be limited to not more than 20 minutes. Can I put the question? Is that the mood of the House? There being nobody interested in debating this motion, I now put the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, debate on the special motion under Order number 10 be limited to a maximum of not more than 5 hours, with each member speaking for not more than 10 minutes, except the leader of the minority party, who will be limited to not more than 20 minutes. As members of that opinion say aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Which means, honorable members, that we now can debate this motion in the direction I gave to tomorrow, and I'll give the first opportunity to the leader of the minority party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance to make a few comments on this motion. Mr. Speaker, I want us to recognize as a House that this is one such moment when we are being called upon to exercise our mandate as provided for under the Constitution. This is one such process that only took effect upon the promulgation of the very progressive 2010 Constitution. It was never the case before that Parliament could be called upon to approve or even to debate appointments by the President. So we must applaud the 2010 Constitution. And let me, for the avoidance of doubt, just read Article 152.2, which is, of course, couched in similar words as Article 154.2 with respect to the Secretary to the Cabinet, and Article 156.2 or Article 2 in respect to the Attorney General's appointment. Mr. Speaker, it must be clear to all and sundry that in exercising its mandate under this article of the Constitution, the House is being called upon to exercise objectivity and due diligence. The Speaker, Article 152, Subarticle 2, says that the President shall nominate, and with the approval of the National Assembly, appoint cabinet secretaries. It means, therefore, Mr. Speaker, that without a doubt, that the appointment of cabinet secretaries by the President cannot be complete unless and until such approval or such appointment is approved by this House. That is the duty we are being called upon to perform this afternoon and probably tomorrow morning. Mr. Speaker, the standing orders, of course, takes cue from the Constitution and provides for the mechanisms of undertaking this approval exercise. And that is what the Committee on Appointments has just completed. That's the reason why we have got this report before us this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, let me say this for starters. that under the Constitution of Kenya 2010, the standards of ethics and morals that are expected of those who occupy public offices have been elevated so high, that this House cannot simply gloss over them. This House can't afford to gloss over those standards as established by the Constitution. And let me take you, Mr. Speaker, to the now famed Chapter 6 of our Constitution, and especially Article 73 and Article 75. Mr. Speaker, Article 73, sub-article 1, among other things, says this: that authority assigned to a state officer is a public trust to be exercised in a manner that, among other things, demonstrates respect for the people and brings honor to the nation and dignity to the office. And if you go ahead, a step ahead, and look at Article 75, Mr. Speaker, it goes on to say that a state officer shall behave. A state officer shall behave, whether in public and in official life, in private life, or in association with other persons, in a manner that avoids, among other things, demeaning the office the officer holds. Why am I emphasizing this, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, it is on record that in the previous administrations, if I begin with the administration of the Honorable Mwai Kibaki, the late President of the Republic of Kenya, sometime in the year 2010, the President has suspended 8 officials for 3 months after they were mentioned adversely in reports on the work of the subsidized maize scheme and Kenya's free primary education program. And I will go further to cite another case when in 2015, I think March, President Uhuru Kenyatta came before this very house, and I was privileged to be in this house at that time. He came before this house and read out a list, what was then referred to as the list of shame, of those individuals, public officers and state officers who were under active investigation by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. And subsequent to the reading of that list, these public and state officers were asked to step aside. It is important to point out that this was obviously in accordance with the requirements of the Constitution, and especially the stringent requirements of Chapter 6 of that Constitution. The Speaker, if you go to the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, you will find that once a public officer or state officer has been charged with corruption or economic crimes, he or she shall be suspended with effect from the date of the charge until the conclusion of the case. The Speaker. The Speaker, why am I saying this again? The Speaker, it is important that when you seek to occupy a public office, and indeed a public office as high as that of a cabinet secretary, you must, like Caesar's wife, be beyond reproach. There are no two ways about it. There can be no two ways about it, Mr. Speaker. And that is the basis upon which you will come to appreciate the fact that a minority of the members of the Committee on Appointments did write a minority or dissenting opinion, especially on two nominees. That is the Honorable Mithika Linturi and the Honorable Aisha Jumwa. Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Appointments did a rigorous job and with utmost objectivity. And indeed, on cases where we agreed, there was no wasting of time. I have a cases in point, the case of the Honorable Professor Kindiki Kiture, the Honorable Kipchumba Murkomen, and the Honorable Aden Dwale, who for sure left us with no doubt whatsoever that they were capable of exercising the mandates under the dockets to which they had been nominated. And unanimously, we approved their nominations or appointments. The Speaker. The Speaker, on the matter of the Honorable Mithika Linturi, if you go to the report, you will, at page 18, paragraph 17, the commission, that is the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, further stated that it had received adverse reports against the following nominees. 1, Honorable Franklin Mithika Linturi. Allegations that he is in possession of a forged KCSE certificate and a Bachelor of Commerce degree from Marathwada University in India, which he used to register for the Bachelor of Laws degree in the University of Nairobi. It is important to note that during the committee's proceedings, this question was put to the Honorable Linturi. And his answer was that his Bachelor of Laws degree from the University of Nairobi had no issue whatsoever. And yet, according to the EACC, this is a matter which is still under active investigation. He contended that the only issue he had was his master's degree program in law at the University of Nairobi, which had been stopped under suspicious circumstances. The Speaker, the Honorable Linturi went further to inform the committee that he was saddled with a plethora of cases, a litany of cases, numbering about 35, that had weighed him down so much that he wanted to forget about them and move on. Mr. Speaker, how will you move on? How do you move on when you have got active cases against you in court? When we approve you to be a cabinet secretary with all these cases, how would you move on? And yet Kenyans expect you to go and serve them from the office to which you have been appointed. That was our difficulty with the Honorable Mithika Linturi. And indeed, in addition to this other matter of the university accreditation, university certificates, he had the issue of the attempted rape case, which of course had been dropped, and the issue of forgery in terms of acquisition of certain loans which were ongoing. The Speaker, all this put into context raised serious questions of integrity that in our view as minority we felt could not allow the Honorable Linturi to effectively perform the functions of the office of a cabinet secretary if appointed, the Speaker. On the issue of Honorable Aisha Jumwa, it is a matter of public notoriety that the Honorable Aisha Jumwa, up to this afternoon, is still facing an active case of murder. Up to this afternoon, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and you will recall for sure, because we live in this country, that some few years ago, none other than the Cabinet Secretary responsible for National Treasury, Mr. Henry Rotich, was charged with certain offenses, I think other corruption or related offenses. And upon being charged, he was made to step aside. Henry Rotich has stayed out of office since then, up to now. until the end of the administration of Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta. So what logic then would we apply? While on one end, a person as senior as CS in charge of Treasury is being asked to step down, while you are attempting to appoint somebody who is facing active murder charges in court to a public office. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honorable Wandai knows when the Speaker has said he has given Honorable Chepkonga to speak, he needs to sit down. Mr. Speaker, I stand pursuant to Standing Order number 83, as read together with Standing Order number 91, in which it says, Mr. Speaker, a member shall be responsible for the accuracy of any facts which the member alleges to be true and may be required to substantiate any such facts. Is it in order, Mr. Speaker, for the Honorable Wandai, who is the minority leader, to claim that the Honorable Aisha Chumwa does not fit, or she is not fit to stand or to be appointed into office when he knows that they appointed the Honorable Aisha Chumwa as a commissioner within the Parliamentary Service Commission, and which he continues to be in that position up to right now as we speak, holding public office as a state officer, Mr. Speaker. I don't need to be informed, Mr. Speaker. I have been a commissioner with Commissioner Aisha Chumwa. The allegation did not arise yesterday, Mr. Speaker. This allegation has been in the public domain as claimed by the Honorable, the minority leader. It is been there's the judicial notice that there's an allegation that she's been accused. And so, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Wandai should be stopped from claiming that she is not fit when she is serving in the Parliamentary Service Commission as a commissioner, courtesy of ODM. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Wandai, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I think I would simply ignore. It is not worth spending time on. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, I know I've been here long enough now, Mr. Speaker. Yeah. Honorable Chepkonga took some break.
If you have ignored, then don't refer.
Mr. Speaker, what am I saying? What I'm saying is that we must not apply double standards. You cannot, on one hand, demand of a public or state officer to step aside once they are charged in a court of law, while on the other hand, be proceeding to appoint people to state or public offices while they are facing criminal offenses in court. That can only happen in Kenya, Mr. Speaker. And I want to invite this House. I want to invite this House not to give approval to such an adventure. Yeah, we cannot allow this House to take the country backwards, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi. Mr. Speaker, at the commencement of the sittings of the Committee on Appointments, I did raise issues, of course, about the constitutional and legal status of the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, on which you ruled. And of course, we have to accept the ruling, Mr. Speaker. The committee has gone ahead to approve, therefore, the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi's appointment, but with a rider. And the rider is contained in page 39, page 40, chapter 8, or part 8. If you go down there, the last sentence on that page, in its deliberations, after the approval hearing of the nominee, the committee observed that it may be necessary to establish a legislative framework to further elaborate on the roles and functions of the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. That is the committee in its wisdom, making a pronouncement of monumental effect. That this office, if left the way it is, could in essence turn the Honorable Mudavadi into an idle cabinet secretary. It could easily turn him into something I want to mention, into an errand boy, sort of. That this House, together with the executive, needs to move with speed and create a legislative framework for this office to function effectively as that of a cabinet secretary. Otherwise, you end up having the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, whom we really respect, sitting idly and trying to look for roles to perform, trying to get some roles from the Deputy President, some roles from the President, some roles from the CS for Interior. That is not going to be good for this country and for the person of the stature of the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi. So the committee has duly recommended that in a short while, that legislative framework needs to be established for this office to be anchored properly in law. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, this House is being called upon to rise to the occasion. To rise to the occasion and not to be seen as a mere rubber stamp. This House cannot be a mere rubber stamp. It could not have been the intention of the framers of the Constitution that this House would be a mere rubber stamp to pass through nominations that have been brought to it by the President. There's a reason as to why the framers of the Constitution established, especially Article 152, Sub-Article 2, that the President would not have a free pass, would not have an open check, that this House would act as a safeguard to address issues of suitability, issues of integrity, and all other issues surrounding each and every nominee to the high office of Cabinet Secretary. I will be calling upon this House that when the time comes for taking a vote, that as we approve the other nominees who the committee have approved, when it comes to the two nominees on whom we have drafted a dissenting opinion, that this House would agree with us and reject their nomination. That is the Honorable Mithika Linturi and the Honorable Aisha Jumwa. And on that account, Mr. Speaker, I would be pleading with you that when it comes to voting, apart from voting for these other people as a block, on those two nominees, we vote for them individually and separately. And separately, yes. I am being advised that we need to vote for everybody individually and separately. Mr. Speaker, that is important, so that this House pronounces itself properly. Kenya is a leading democracy in the region of East Africa and entire Central Africa area. We cannot allow to have persons against whom we have got issues, however slight they might be, to be paraded and to be encouraged, to be shepherded to the high offices of cabinet secretaries and the likes. This House must stand firm and be on the right side of history. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support with those reservations. Thank you.
Yes. Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, what's your point of order?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise on Standing Order 97, Mr. Speaker, because looking at the time now, being around 5 p.m., if this debate proceeds up to 7, and the allocation of time is roughly 10 minutes per member, Mr. Speaker, today only 12 members will get an opportunity to contribute. Tomorrow we may be lucky to have an extra 2 hours. That is another 12 members, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I'm seeking your indulgence, Mr. Speaker, that we reduce the time per member to around 5 minutes per member, so that we have as many members as possible contributing to this motion, Mr. Speaker, because as it is now, will actually have fewer members speaking than the cabinet secretaries that have been vetted by the Committee on Appointments. Mr. Speaker, I seek your indulgence.
We'll come back to that, Honorable Ndindi. Let's hear a few members within the allocated time. Honorable Osoro.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to address myself on the report that has been tabled in this House by the Committee on Appointment. Honorable Speaker, I have gone through the report keenly because I did not have a chance to watch the entire vetting process, but I've gone through the report keenly, and much as I support to the extent of the 21 nominees, I raise an exception on the rejection of one Penina Malonza. Honorable Speaker, when you read the report tabled before this House and the recommendations of the committee, you'll notice serious and very positive milestones made and achieved by Honorable Penina Malonza. One, the committee states in their report that Penina Malonza holds a master's degree, is a student of, currently is a student of master's in the University of Nairobi. She holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Nairobi. She has never been charged before a court of law. She meets the requirements of Chapter 6. She has no history of controversy. She's been cleared by Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission of Kenya, cleared by the Kenya Revenue Authority, cleared by the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, and in their very first paragraph, the first paragraph of this report, that in accordance with Article 78, 1, 2, and 2 of the Constitution, the nominee is eligible for appointment to state office since she is a Kenyan citizen born on 7th March 1974 in Kitui County and does not hold a dual citizenship. Oh, sorry, it's Madam Speaker now, so that I don't find myself also in the similar challenge that Penina had. So, Madam Speaker, what does that one imply? What that implies then is that there is another parameter that the committee used to come up with their rejection report. And in my presumption, the committee used the imaginary presentation, they used the very short event of vetting to define her suitability. The committee is telling us that by her mere presentation, which possibly took about 90 minutes, she does not fit, or she could not be able to answer adequate questions as asked by the committee. Now, Honorable Speaker, this is not the right parameter to use when rejecting a nominee. If the nominee has been cleared by all the relevant authorities, or the statutory bodies have cleared her, then you cannot use a singular event to define one's suitability or insuitability. The nominee has once served as a deputy governor of Kitui County for 5 years. 5 years being elected deputy county governor of Kitui County. This House has no report. It has no report about her integrity. This House has no report about, any petition that might have, been filed by, the voters of Kitui County when she served. There is no report about, integrity or money or ESCC, anything that involves any government parastatal. What parameter did the committee use to reject? Is it because she's a woman? Is it because she did not have people to defend her in that particular committee? Is it because she's a widow? Is it because she only has one child? Is it because she does not have enough money? Honorable Speaker, I call upon this House to overturn the recommendation by this committee and pass Honorable Penina Malonza. I mean, we all understand when some of our members here in this House, when before this microphone, they even refer to the chair when she's female like you, Madam Speaker, sir. Does that define their suitability, their insuitability not to serve as members of parliament in their constituencies? I mean, it is normal for one to be a stage fright. It's a singular event. And we understand that the definition the committee might have used is possibly her way of expression. But not every person is an actor. Not every person is able to speak before cameras. She knew that she was live before TV. You know, really, she knew that. And it is normal for any person to have anxiety. It is normal for any person to develop a bit of some stage fright. It is normal for any person at least to also get scared, especially when you have people like Honorable Jeanette looking at her straight in the eye. And she gets scared, you know. She's used to seeing Jeanette on TV, you know, very tough on questions and stuff like that. It is very normal. We cannot use that singular event to deny the women of this country an opportunity to serve. His Excellency the President of the Republic, His Excellency the President of the Republic, at one point during the campaign, committed to have at least a good sizable number of women serve in cabinet. This was a good display. This was a good show. Please do not deny women a chance to serve in this country. There is no parameter that has been used. By the way, this committee, the committee on appointment, while we support part of your recommendations, we want you to use the similar parameters you used on Honorable Aisha Jumwa, the similar parameters you used on Honorable Mithika Lunturi, be applied on Penina Malonza. And Honorable Speaker, it's very important for me to say this. We do not want to allow this House
Honorable members, order members, we will not catch the Speaker's eye by shouting. Please ensure your card is working and you put it on intervention if you have a point of order. Continue, Honorable Soro.
Honorable Speaker, it is very important for us not to allow ourselves, when we're in positions of authority, not to allow our local politics to play at the expense
members, Honorable Anthony Oluoch, what's your point of order?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise on a point of order. The majority whip is taking this House for a ride. If you look at the composition, hey, I will raise my point of order. You will not intimidate me. Madam Speaker, if you look at the composition of the committee that vetted this, the majority of those who were in this committee were from the party who is now standing, asking the question. They don't know how the committee arrived at that position. Is it in order? The same majority side cannot probate and approbate. If they rejected Madam Malonza, they must own up, apologize to the women of this country, and then ask for an amendment. But the same side cannot have rejected Malonza, then come here and ask us. They don't know how the committee did it. They are the majority. Please accept, apologize to the women, apologize to Malonza, and then we will help you to pass Madam Malonza. You are not in order.
Order, members. You will not be, the members will not rule each other out of order. And I think that issue had already been canvassed by Honorable Mbadi, Honorable Osoro. Go on.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the issue of the composition of the committee has as being prosecuted by Honorable Anthony Oluoch, it's very important for us to also remember, and it's on Hansard, the speakers that have spoken before me are on record as saying that this was a unanimous decision, and we do not want to dwell on who voted how with the committee. We are generally discussing about the entire report by the committee. And it's important for me, Honorable Speaker, to say this. We understand that at times local politics play when such appointments or opportunities arise during the appointments. I call upon my colleague leaders that let's learn to put our country ahead of everything. My imagination is that even the local politics must have played in this whole thing to reject, that warranted the rejection of Penina Malonza. However, Honorable Speaker, it is wrong to only use one parameter to deny her. I think if we were to be fair, we ought to have allowed every, if the rejection ought to be on matters that are serious, that affect on, that touch on Chapter 6 of the Constitution, that touch on suitability, but not on issues of, presentation to the committee. Maybe she wasn't dressed very well. Maybe she was on her periods. You cannot start making her. Yes, exactly.
Your time is up. Your time is up. Your time is up. Order. Order, members. Order, members. Order, members. We will now hear the Honourable Member for Suna East, Honourable Junet Mohammed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this motion, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm a member of the appointment committee that vetted the nominees, Madam Speaker, and we had taken a lot of our time to make sure that, Madam Speaker, we look into this matter in a very, very, very into a very good perspective, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, why we were doing that is because this is the highest decision-making organ of the country, Madam Speaker, the Cabinet of the Republic of Kenya. Madam Speaker, if I may give my views on what was presented before the committee, Madam Speaker, and in accordance with the report that we have made as a committee, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Constitution is very clear. The Constitution says that this country, when appointments are made, we must look into issues of regional balance, we must look into ethnic balance, and we must look into issues that can bring cohesion in this country, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if you look at this appointment of these ministers, Madam Speaker, we have a cabinet now consisting of 24 members, Madam Speaker. 24 members. And if you look at the composition of this cabinet, Madam Speaker, of these 24, the region where the president comes from, Madam Speaker, 4 ministers come from there. Including the president, there are 5 in the cabinet. The region where the deputy president comes from have 8 ministers, Madam Speaker. Including him, there are 9. If you put 9 plus 5, there are 14. And the total number is 24. All the other parts of the country has only 10 cabinet ministers, Madam Speaker, ambayo wametupiwa kama kuku na tupiwa mahindi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is when will a Turkana be a minister in this country? When will Borana be a minister in this country, Madam Speaker? When will a Korea be a minister in this country, Madam Speaker? If every election, year in and a Pokot, year in, year out, we have the president's region having 5 ministers, the deputy president ministers having 9 ministers, out on 24 ministers, you have 14, the other part of the country are 10. Madam Speaker, if that is not unfair, what do you call unfairness, Madam Speaker? This must stop, Madam Speaker. This is unconstitutional, Madam Speaker. This is an affront to the constitution of this country, Madam Speaker. That is why the constitution speaks to the issue of regional balance, ethnic balance, and cohesion of this country, Madam Speaker. First, Madam Speaker, on that note, this appointment lacks the constitutional merit that it requires for it to govern this country, Madam Speaker. Secondly, Madam Speaker, we have vetted the members. Some of them are distinguished, outstanding members, Madam Speaker, and I agree with the committee that some of them merit to be cabinet ministers, and they have qualified and passed the standards that we were looking for as a committee. But a few of them, Madam Speaker, as we have noted in our minority report, are substandard, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when you are talking about the cabinet of the Republic of Kenya, and you want to have a cabinet minister seated there who has a live case in court, not a capital offense, Madam Speaker, of murder, Madam Speaker. How do you want this House to approve that, Madam Speaker, unless we have lost our head, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, it is very clear. It is very important for the image of this country, Madam Speaker, for that nominee to step aside, go and clear her cases in court. Once she has finished.
What is your point of order, Honorable GK of Ndia?
Who's GK?
Clerk, please give Honorable George Karaoke the microphone.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Junet, I am GK. Government, yes. And Honorable Speaker, my point of order is in regard to something he has said, that Atokana has never been a cabinet secretary in this country. We know very well we had Honorable Munez, who was a cabinet secretary. So you are misleading the House. Please, that's my point of order, Madam Speaker. Withdraw.
Honorable Junet.
I know. Madam Speaker, I agree with the Honorable GK, the government of Kenya, that he thinks this 21 or 24 we are passing now has a Turkana in the. There is no Turkana in this list that we are passing as a cabinet minister, Madam Speaker. The one you are talking about was in the previous cabinet, Mr. Honorable Member. Now we are discussing new nominees, new appointments, Madam Speaker, under the new government of Kenya, under the leadership of President William Ruto, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wanted to say that, Madam Speaker, the nominee for public service and gender, Madam Speaker, it is imperative, Madam Speaker, let us not trivialize the matter, because what the standards we are going to set in this parliament today, it is what is going to be used in the future, Madam Speaker. If we approve a nominee today who has a case in court, who has a live case in court, Madam Speaker, of murder case, a capital offense, Madam Speaker, tomorrow anybody can be brought to this House with any kind of cases, Madam Speaker, and pass, because you will have set the standard that one time the Parliament of the Republic of Kenya passed a nominee with a murder case, Madam Speaker. And I'm not judging anyone. We cannot say she's guilty of the offense or she is not guilty of the offense. That is the courts to decide, not us, Madam Speaker. We need to let the court do their work, let the court judge her, acquit her, or convict her, Madam Speaker. Then from there, we can make a decision as a House, Madam Speaker, whether that person is fit to hold the office of a cabinet secretary, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, look at the world democracy, Madam Speaker. Look at developed countries, Madam Speaker. Look at the democracies that we borrow from, Madam Speaker. Leave alone being charged in court, Madam Speaker. When even allegation is put against you, whether they are true or false, until you clear your name, until you are told to step aside. Madam Speaker, public officers who are in office, governors who have been charged in court were barred from their offices, Madam Speaker. Public officers who were taken to court were all told to leave office, Madam Speaker. what is the moral authority we have as a House to pass today in the floor of this House, Madam Speaker, a cabinet secretary who has a case in court, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the other nominee that was rejected unanimously by the committee is Honorable Madam Malonza. Madam Speaker, I don't want to speak like the way my colleague spoke here, whether she's a female, whether no. We were not looking at gender. Madam Speaker, we were looking at the suitability and the competence of that individual to hold that high office of a cabinet secretary, Madam Speaker. And if, in the eyes of the committee felt that the person did not stand up to the requirement of that office, Madam Speaker.
What is out of order, Honorable Makali Mulu?
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I didn't want to disturb my colleague and friend, Honorable Junet, but I think when he says that they were not looking at gender, that is unconstitutional. The Constitution demands that they must consider gender as one of the key factors when looking at these things. Thank you very much.
Honorable
Madam
Junet.
Speaker, Dr. Makali is somebody I respect highly. But Madam Speaker, the reason of our failure was not because of our gender. That's what I meant. And if that gender is not suitable for that office, Mr. Speaker, there are many qualified Kamba women, Mr. Speaker, in this country who can hold that office. She's not the only Kamba in Kenya. So, Mr. Speaker, I was just saying she was not disqualified based on her gender. Let us not bring the gender card on the table now just because she's a female lady, a female nominee who has been rejected by the committee, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, what I want to say is that Parliament is being watched by Kenyans, Madam Speaker. Parliament is being tested. This country, this Parliament has a destiny with the people of Kenya, Madam Speaker, on the approval of these nominees. Kenyans want to know whether we are a conveyor belt. Kenyans want to know whether we are a rubber stamp, Madam Speaker, for the executive. We must stand up and tell the executive they are wrong when they are wrong. There are many Kenyans who are qualified that they can bring back to this House, Madam Speaker. There are over 30 million Kenyans who can do the job of a cabinet secretary, Madam Speaker. It's not only me and you and others who have been nominated, Madam Speaker. The reason why the Constitution, Madam Speaker, gave the approval of nominees of cabinet secretary to the House, Madam Speaker, there is a valid reason for that, Madam Speaker. Look at what happens in the United States, Madam Speaker. If we approve these members just because we are part of the party that is forming government, Madam Speaker, we shall be doing injustice to Kenyans, Madam Speaker. You must rise up and stand up and defend the rights of Kenyans, Madam Speaker, whether it is favoring you or it's not favoring your party, Madam Speaker. So for that reason, Madam Speaker, I want to urge this House to agree with the minority that we reject those 3 nominees so that we can have other Kenyans nominated who are qualified, who can do the work for this country, Madam Speaker. When you are made a cabinet secretary, you're not going to serve your family. You're not going to serve your wife or your husband. You are going to serve the people of Kenya. And the people of Kenya gave their sovereignty to the members of parliament so that they can do on their behalf the vetting of the nominees, Madam Speaker. Honorable members, stand your grounds. Don't be intimidated. Whether you're in Kenya Kwanza, whether you're in Azimio, do the right thing for the people of Kenya, Madam Speaker. And we must stand up and defend the Kenyan people, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much. And have a good day. And let's make sure those 3...
Your time is up. The member for Naivasha, Jane Kihara.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this chance. First and foremost is to congratulate the team, the select team that was interviewing these nominees. They did a good job. I wish to congratulate all of them. However, I support each and every nominee that went through their interview. One, because we all listened, we saw, and these are people, some of them we know them, regardless. In fact, I want to talk about this lady, Penina Malonza. I met her on Mashujaa Day, and I spoke to her, and I think she's eloquent. She knows what she's supposed to be doing. In fact, her tray is already full, especially for Naivasha. Being in tourism, nominated for tourism, heritage and wildlife, and everything else. We have problems with buffaloes in Naivasha. I told her, you have to help us here. Naivasha has been degraded. In fact, members of parliament are not going to Naivasha as much as we have good hotels because we have been degraded. People go to Kisumu, to Nakuru, or Mombasa. You all know how we have good hotels. It's just that waking up on a bad day. It happens to all of us. Once in a while, you don't wake up on the right side. If she has all the credentials, she's schooled, she is well schooled, she has a degree. If she has served as a deputy governor, we know the requirement is having a degree. She has worked in very many offices. Like anybody else would say, maybe she did not answer the questions that they would have asked, but she's not going to start a ministry. She's going to find a ministry which is already running. So she's going to work with technical people who are going to help her run the ministry, and she'll learn the ropes and move ahead. I want to talk about Aisha. Aisha is a strong leader who we have seen in this country. Let's not use political malice to discredit Aisha. Aisha is a strong leader. She has worked in the Parliamentary Service Commission. She's been a commissioner. The fact that she divorced ODM, she should not be condemned because it's ODM who told us he's a leader and nominated her to the commission. Honorable Mudavadi, Honorable Wadai, for heaven's sake, telling us that Honorable Mudavadi is going to be an errand person, an errand boy. We know he has worked in this country. In fact, he has been a vice president of this country. He has been a minister for finance. He cannot be an errand person. So he is able to do the work and supervise the ministers. Madam Speaker, it's upon this House to pass these nominees. You have CDF committees members. You are not going to get a person who is not going to help you perform your role. So the president nominated the people he thinks are going to help him deliver this country, remove it from the economic...
Honorable Jeanette, what is out of order?
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, this is a House of Record, Madam Speaker. You see, Madam Speaker, this report was done by a parliamentary committee called Appointments Committee, Madam Speaker, chaired by the Speaker, Honorable Moses Pasika Wetangula. Madam Speaker, is it in order for the Honorable Member to say that we are victimizing Aisha because she was a member of ODM? Now who's victimizing Malonza? Is it Kenya Kwanza because she was removed by the whole committee who are members of Kenya Kwanza and Azimio? Does it mean that Malonza was also victimized by Kenya Kwanza? Madam Speaker, those parochial way of debating can divide us, Madam Speaker, and we are ready for it.
Honorable Jean Kiara, continue.
I think I'll continue because, in fact, this lady may have feared Jeanette because of the way she asked questions. Maybe that's why. Because from her papers, from her credentials, she has served in many offices, she has worked in many offices, she has been a deputy governor, she has gone to school. So I think she just feared those remarks that usually are made by Honorable Jeanette. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, we don't need to be mean. We don't need to be mean just because the nominees have come from the president who maybe you did not support. I think we need this. We need to have a government running. We are waiting. Malonza, I'll run to her for our Naivasha being degraded. I'll go to her office because of the buffaloes we have. I know I'll go to Inturi because we need seeds for our farmers. So this is something that we should do away with, get the government running, and we all start running to those offices because we need to serve the Kenyans who elected us. With those very, very many remarks, I don't need to say much. I only need to say we need to pass this report and reject the dissenting one. We pass every nominee so that they sit in the office. And especially Madam Malonza. Thank you.
Member for Endebess.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to contribute to the report by the Committee on Appointments. On the onset, Madam Speaker, what I want to say is that I support this report with amendments. The amendment is on rejection of Penina Malonza, where I'll be bringing an amendment to delete that rejection and approve the appointment of Madam Penina Malonza. And I'll ask the House that when the question will be put on Madam Penina Malonza, we'll put a nay so that it allows us to be able to approve this appointment. Reading at the observations of the committee, Madam Speaker, the reasons why I think that the committee erred on this report is that when you read the report, this nominee is the former deputy governor for Kitui County, having served since 2013 until 2017. Former partner training and support director for Compassion International, Kenya, office during the period 2012 to 2013, and also served as a program supervisor of Compassion International during the period 2010 to 2012. Senior program facilitator during the period 2009 to 2010, and program facilitator during the period 2006 to 2009 for Compassion International. The nominee also served as a project director for Changamwe Baptist Church between 2002 to 2006. She holds a master's in project management, in project planning and management, which she got in 2008. She has a higher diploma in psychological counseling management, which she got in 2007, and a Bachelor of Arts in anthropology from the University of Nairobi in 1998. Madam Speaker, when you look at this CV and you look at the recommendation of the committee, where the committee in number 7 observation says that the nominee did not demonstrate knowledge of topical, administrative, and technical issues touching on the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife, and Heritage. Consequently, the nominee lacks requisite abilities and experience to serve as the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism, Wildlife, and Heritage. It actually contradicts, that observation contradicts what the committee has written up there about the nominee. And therefore, to me, this nominee had a lapse maybe during that time when she appeared before this committee. We've seen, even in the last administration, CAS in tourism was a former Inspector General of Police, Poinet, and she appeared in Parliament here before to collect views on members, where they come from, where we have wildlife. Endebess constituency, we have Mount Elgon National Park, and we contributed views to the committee of Poinet. Poinet, having been an Inspector General, he was not an expert in tourism, but listening to him appearing before our committee, he had grasp of the ideas. Also, having been an examiner in the past, we've seen students coming before examiners. And when they appear before the examiners, at times they get blackout because of the fear of the unknown. And as a good examiner, you can tell this student, have a seat, give him even a cup of tea or a glass of water, allow the student to rest, Then after that, you examine, and you'll find that this student is able to pass. So for me, I think she was not given adequate time. The committee, I watched that interview on 19th at 2:30 p.m. And I think the committee continued bumping questions to her. To me, as a doctor, the committee should have even given her time to rest and give her time to assess. Somebody who has an anthropology degree, somebody who has a master's degree, somebody who has been a senior position of management, surely you end up with an observation that she does not demonstrate knowledge of topical, administrative, and technical. Even you, if any of you had to appear before me for questioning on medical issues, all of you would not have knowledge of topical, administrative, and technical issues. So for me, I think this lady deserves to be given a second time. On the dissenting report by the minority party, on Honorable Aisha Jumwa, I was just reading 411, and it says the family has actually withdrawn the case of murder against Honorable Aisha Jumwa this afternoon. And I think the DPP is in the process of having that case to be withdrawn. So the allegations that we are making here against Honorable Aisha Jumwa, I think they are overtaken by offense. And having been also a member in this House, she was cleared by all the agencies to contest, even as a governor for Kilifi County. If she was given to be a position to contest for Kilifi County, if she had succeeded, because she almost succeeded as a governor for Kilifi, if she had succeeded as a governor, she would be serving as a governor for Kilifi County. So I don't see it in merit, the argument that she is not fit to be a cabinet secretary. Similarly to Honorable Mithika Linduri. Mithika Linduri was contesting as a governor for Meru. If Mithika Linduri had succeeded as a governor for Meru to be chosen by the people of Meru, he would be a governor now. So we must give them let the due process of law take its effect. When you refer to the case of the former administration, in which a list was read in this House on March 2015, many of those cabinet secretaries were victims of circumstance, because up to today, none of them has been taken to a court of law and proved to be guilty of any offense that they were read in this House. I think at times we should not use the law to demonize. We should not use our positions to cark other people or to destroy other people's careers. This House should not be used to destroy anybody's career, and more so, Penina Malonza. I urge this House that when I bring the amendment on Penina Malonza, we support. And you know why we cannot bring it now is that in Article 56.2, you cannot negate, in the opinion of the Speaker, a motion that is been put. So we need to be able to reject that amendment, that motion by the committee, and be able to bring an approval for Penina Malonza. With those few remarks, I support with the amendment.
Member for Kathiani, Honorable Robert Mbui.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. Madam Speaker, I think when I listen to a lot of members making contribution on this motion, maybe what we need to ask ourselves is, why is it the Kenyan National Assembly, as per the Constitution 2010, has been given an opportunity to vet all nominees by the President of the Republic of Kenya? I mean, listening to some of the arguments, Madam Speaker, it would probably, there are people who have the opinion that the President should probably just appoint and people go to office. Or people send CVs and they are looked at in an office and people are sent to office. The vetting process is supposed to give this House, where we serve, an opportunity to be able to go through the credentials and the abilities of these members so that we can make an opinion. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say that we cannot say we are wrong or we are right. We are expressing an opinion, which is what the Constitution envisages. And this House must also reach that point where we can stamp our authority. Because we have been in this House, this is the third time. But it is unfortunate that this House, many times we are actually used as a conveyor belt. The Speaker reads the names, they go to the Appointments Committee, they are all passed, and then members, it's like we are choir singing for the executive. Madam Speaker, I think when we talk about this vetting process, I want to thank the Constitution and, of course, the leadership of the House, because this was a very transparent process. I am listening to members speak here, and I'm wondering whether they watched the proceedings. Madam Speaker, Kenyans were also vetting as we were vetting those nominees. And Kenyans saw the competencies. Kenyans heard the answers. Kenyans also appreciated the questions that were asked. In fact, Madam Speaker, I dare say that a lot of the questions that we were asking came from memoranda from the public that is in this report that members need to read, and also SMSs and phone calls that were made to us. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say that it is wrong for anyone to cast aspersions on this committee, because we are just 21 members that were given the mandate on behalf of the House to be able to listen to these nominees and come up with a verdict. Madam Speaker, I want to talk about what was considered, because it's important that members understand this. The Section 6, Part 7 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011 says that an approval hearing shall focus on a candidate's academic credentials, professional training, experience, personal integrity, and background. Madam Speaker, Section 7 indicates that the committee shall consider any constitutional or statutory requirements relating to the office and the suitability of the nominee for the appointment, having regard to the nominee's abilities, experience, and qualities. So, Madam Speaker, when we look at these cabinet nominees that came to us, those were the things that we were considering. And I want to go through the observations that I personally made, because as a member of the committee, other than the agreeing to the committee's report, I also have my personal observations. First, Madam Speaker, I noted that this cabinet is made up of extremely...
Honorable Kagombe, what is out of order?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Is the honorable member in order to insinuate that the chance to vet these members of the cabinet is issued by the executive or the president, while it is very clear in Article 154 that the secretary to the cabinet shall be vetted by the parliament after being nominated by the president. So by insinuating that this is a chance given to us by the executive or by the president, he's out of order. Please declare him out of order.
Madam Speaker, I think there are some comments that are just meant to take away time for people who are making contributions. So I'll ignore that, Madam Speaker, and continue to say that I observed that this cabinet is made up of extremely wealthy individuals. Madam Speaker, during the campaigns, I heard Kenya Kwanza, which is now in power, mention that they will come up with a cabinet and a government that will be with mamambogas, with boda-bodas, and all sorts of leadership from that level, including the small peasant farmers. Madam Speaker, the average wealth of the nominees was 1-point-something billion. And Madam Speaker, I want to say that in future, there's something I want to propose, that we must ensure that the wealth declaration forms that are given by these nominees.
Bombui, do you want to be informed by the majority leader?
I don't want information, Madam Speaker. I want to finish my contribution. So, Madam Speaker, I wanted to propose that in future, the wealth declaration, because we received their personal, comment on their wealth. I think it's important that we get actual proof. If people say they have land in Runda, we see the title deeds. They say they have vehicles, V8s, we see the V8s. They have Range Rovers worth 25 million, we see a logbook. Because, Madam Speaker, there is a danger in when people are being vetted and they are asked their wealth. There's a possibility someone can exaggerate their wealth, knowing that they might have 5 years of looting so that they can reach their threshold that they want. So, Madam Speaker, it's important, and I propose, going forward, we try and insist that the nominees give actual proof of the wealth declaration that they make. But, Madam Speaker, I'm also happy that we have democratic rights, even in committees. And you know, we have the right for the majority to have their way, while also the minority have their say. And that is the reason why we have a minority report attached to this report. Many of the nominees, Madam Speaker, had very glaring issues. And I can say that even in my questioning some of them, I would have even recommended that almost 20 of them should not be appointed. But because of the give and take and the discussions, and when I was sometimes put to task, I was unable to really clearly indicate why. That is why we ended up singling out only 3. Madam Speaker, as I talk about those 3, I want to start first with the appointment of the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, whom we have agreed that we are going to, we are proposing for appointment. But, Madam Speaker, the position of Prime Cabinet Secretary was one position that we had a lot of questions about. And of course, as a committee, we have kind of agreed at the end that we will establish, you know, legislative framework so that we can elaborate the roles. Madam Speaker, the real reason why we want to do that is to ensure that there is no conflict in the service of this cabinet. Because one of the reasons why there is conflict in many times when people are given roles that are not clear or that seem to be, you know, similar to other individuals' roles, then what you end up having is a problem where people do not know where their work starts and where it ends. We saw this happen in the Grand Coalition government, Madam Speaker, because the Vice President then and the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think it's completely out of order for the Honorable Mbui, and I think I also heard the Honorable Junet, or the Leader of Minority, insinuate that there is a clash between the responsibilities and functions of the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary and that of the Deputy President. Well, the Honorable Mbui is well aware that His Excellency the President, in his Executive Order number 1, designated clear functions and roles of the office of the Cabinet Secretary, Prime Cabinet Secretary, and those of the office of the Deputy President. Indeed, unlike in the handshake government that the Honorable Mbui was very excited to be affiliated to, because he was not even part of the handshake. He was just affiliated and hanging around there with his party leader, Honorable Speaker. There were no clear definitions of what even the Deputy President would do. That is how the Deputy President in the former regime ended up being a candidate of the opposition party. And your candidate in Azimio ended up being Uhuru Kenyatta's project. Honorable Mbui is completely out of order to be misleading the country. What you are doing is misleading the country, Honorable Speaker, that there is no clear distinction on the functions. And you know, through that executive order, that distinction was cleared, and Honorable Mbui, you should not mislead the country.
Madam Speaker, you must give me an extra like 10 minutes, which he has just wasted here, giving a lot of hot air, Madam Speaker, because I really don't think that what you are standing on is a point of order. He was trying to inform me, and I think, well, let me say I stand guided, because that will make him hold his horses. Madam Speaker, on the 3 nominees that we rejected, 1, Aisha Jumwa. The certificate of good conduct from the DCI, Madam Speaker, came out indicating that all the nominees were clean except her. And they clearly indicated, the certificate of good conduct indicated that she has 2 cases. One was a murder case that is yet to be determined. The other one was conspiracy to commit corruption, which is also undetermined. Madam Speaker, surely, when do we start as a nation, as a country, as a continent, to take political responsibility and step aside when we are named for and charged with major offenses? So, Madam Speaker, I think on that particular one, we are not condemning her because she's not been charged yet. I mean, she's not been convicted. But it only makes sense that she steps aside until these cases are heard and determined. Because what would happen if she's appointed today and tomorrow she's convicted of murder? What would happen, Madam Speaker? So I think on that one, it is just taking political responsibility. On the matter of Franklin Mithika Linturi, Madam Speaker, every Kenyan had. He himself, in fact, the Speaker tried to help him. And we tried to help him and told him, do not answer questions you've not been asked. He's the one who volunteered information to the Kenyan public. He has 35 cases, he has divorce cases, he can't go to his house, he has a problem with everyone. So, Madam Speaker, the problem was not us. We only dealt with the information that came to us. And we felt that this person didn't have the integrity that it took to be able to hold that office, so that Kenyans can get service from people that are clean, and we stop having these issues where Kenyans are constantly...
Your time is up. Your time is up, Honorable Mbui. We will now hear Honorable Onesmus Ngogoyo, Kajiado North.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support the motion on the floor. And like a member had mentioned, I will support the motion with an amendment. Madam Speaker, looking at the Public Parliamentary Approval Act, the committee went ahead to conduct the vetting of the proposed CS nominees, and they were able to do so in a record time, and I think we need to congratulate the committee for a job well done. But Madam Speaker, you realize that the Public Parliamentary Approval Act does not carry a marking scheme. It intends to look at the suitability of a member, and Madam Speaker, an hour and a half would not determine the suitability of a member, but going through what the committee has looked at its observation, you could read a lot from majority of the people who have been recommended by their past exposures, their CVs, and even what the committee has gone ahead to say that this was what they were able to come up or to see during the vetting. Madam Speaker, I wish to first of all say that for the members that have been approved, I agree with the committee. But I wish to disagree on the issue of rejecting Penina Malonza as a CS. One, because the nominee, according to the report of the committee, has honors and awards that she has received. One, she has received from the Compassion International as the best team performer, and she was given an award. She was also awarded by His Excellency the President then in 2015 with the Order of the Grand Warrior. And Madam Speaker, it is not possible for her to have been a deputy governor, earn such awards, and still be the person to be rejected and assume that there is nothing in her that she can offer. Madam Speaker, I have served in different entities, Madam Speaker, and I have seen people who are approved by different assemblies. And one of the things that you'll realize is that the people exposure of an individual helps them perform in any one office. And one of the things that you can tell by this individual is that she has people skills. In everywhere she has worked, at least they have defined her as a people's person. She has been one of the best team leaders and awarded internationally by what they call GLLUP, or whatever it is, but it's the Compassion International. And Madam Speaker, you realize also when the committee did its report, they said everything that she feel, her questionnaire, everything, and even how she answered question. Apart from a few issues that they raised, they said she was okay. Madam Speaker, there is no graduate who does not have a skills in management. And tourism could be one of the offices she's been recommended to, but remember, it's about management in every office. You have experts under you, people who you foresee, you manage, and they give you reports. I therefore, Madam Speaker, would wish to say that this House should consider approving this motion with an amendment so that Penina Malonza becomes a CS. It is only fair that we give her a chance to prove herself once in office. In any case, if she does not perform, members will also have an opportunity to take on her, because this cabinet, different from many others, will be appearing before this House. On other candidates, Madam Speaker, I wish to single out the issue of one Aisha Jumwa. A number of members have mentioned about Aisha Jumwa. And Madam Speaker, I don't know why everyone has, the few people who are opposing have an issue with politicians, because Aisha Jumwa was a politician, Mithika Linturi was a politician, and even Penina Malonza. It is not possible for you to single out all politicians. We are also politicians. Assuming we were once nominated to these positions, you would wish to be supported by your colleagues, because it is not possible to say that only professionals have the ability to take on people in offices. Therefore, Madam Speaker, with those very few remarks, I wish to support with amendments and say that Penina Malonza, God willing, will become a CS because we will approve her with amendments. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member for Mwingi West, Charles Ngusia, CNN.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity given to me, Madam Speaker. Let me take this opportunity before even commenting on the report on the committee to congratulate His Excellency, Dr. Samoei Ruto, for seeing it wise actually to give the Kamba community 3 CSs. Madam Speaker, the previous administrations have really sidelined us, but this time round, I am happy for the appointment, so congratulations on that. And we have to give credit where it is due. Madam Speaker, I've gone through the report very quickly, and I took some time actually to watch some of the nominees, and let me begin by saying that we can't disagree on what the majority have agreed, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on the issue of my sister, let me declare the interest. Penina Malonza comes from my county, and when she was deputy governor, she really performed. Compassion International right now, it is doing so much in our county, and she was awarded as the best performer in that NGO, and she has exhibited many good characteristics of leadership. When you take work experience, tick. When you look at academic credentials, tick. When you look at leadership skills, when she was deputy governor, tick. On what basis are we discrediting my sister? I am begging this House, the members of this House, to pass Madam Penina Malonza's appointment very soon so that she can begin. And we are tired of waiting for this. The vetting has taken too long. Kenyans need to start working, and we can't work if the executive arm is not fully constituted. So, Madam Speaker, I don't have much to say. I am defending the appointment of Penina Malonza as the CS of tourism. I know she's going to perform because she has performed before, and no doubt this will be the best CS in our country. With those few remarks, I support.
The member for Mandera East, Hussein Weitan. We'll have the nominated member, Dorothy Kiara.
Madam Speaker, I rise to support this motion. And before I do that, allow me to thank His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya. To support the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency President William Samoei Ruto, for appointing these very able men and women to serve in his cabinet, to carry the agenda of his government to the next level. Allow me to thank the committee, the appointment committee, which sat for many, many hours and took their time to vet the nominees and gave their recommendation. Madam Speaker, I want to say the men and women who sat in that committee are astute lawmakers, and I'm sure they did put in cognizance every aspect of what they were supposed to look for to come up with these names. Madam Speaker, I want to say these are people who have served in this country in various capacities, and there is no reason for whatsoever reason for anyone to insinuate that some of them are not fit to serve in the cabinet. Examples have been given that nominee Aisha Juma was vetted and allowed to vie for the governorship, and she did not make it. And I'm sure she was allowed to run for that position because she qualified too. Nominee Medeka Franklin Medeka is a person who has served this country in various capacities and has proven beyond doubt that he is capable of serving at whatever capacity. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I want to passionately implore upon the registrators in this House, let us not have divided mind when it comes to passing these nominees as they are. Madam Speaker, turning to Penina Malonza, who was vetted for the position and the recommendation given that she has not performed very well. Madam Speaker, it's good to know that there are people who suffer from a condition called sociophobia, and normally when they go before people, especially a panel, they normally don't perform so well, and that does not mean that they are not capable. Madam Speaker, I want to join the rest of the members who are supporting this motion and saying I support with an amendment that Penina be part of the nominees who we are passing in this House. I want to implore upon every member, please let us not have dissenting voices when it comes to passing the nominees who His Excellency the President, in his own wisdom, found it fit to nominate them. I submit.
We will now have the member for Molo, Kuria Kimani.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And it's very good to see you, Madam Speaker, on the chair today. It's a great celebration for the great people of Nakuru County. Madam Speaker, I would like to start by weighing in on the issue of a person nominated to a position of Cabinet Secretary or to any other government position where they have an ongoing court case. Madam Speaker, on the record of this House, on the July of 2018, we held a debate on the nomination of one Ben Chumo, who was nominated by His Excellency the former President to be the chairperson for the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Madam Speaker, this House rejected the candidate Ben Chumo on the basis that he had an ongoing corruption court case, an active ongoing corruption case. A few years later, Madam Speaker, and to be specific, last month, the director of the DPP withdrew the case against Ben Chumo. As a result, Ben Chumo was condemned for 4 years without a job. His reputation was tainted. He lost a chance to be the chairperson of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, even when he was not guilty of the offenses that he was accused of. In the report, Madam Speaker, the DCI was accused of not responding to 4 letters sent to them between October of last year and May this year. As a result, Madam Speaker, for a mistake not his own, for some just malicious damage, we lost 4 years of this career civil servant, Madam Speaker. Are we going to do the same to the nominees that have been nominated to the various positions just because there is an ongoing court case, even before a court ruling has been ruled saying that they are guilty, Madam Speaker? If we do that, then the easiest way to ensure that no person is approved at this House will just to start a fictitious court case against that particular candidate. And therefore, as long as someone has leveled allegations against you and taken you to court, then you'll be cast to hold any government position in this country. And for that, this House cannot do that. Madam Speaker, we welcome for the first time the nomination to the cabinet of one Zachary Njeru from Nakuru County. We note, as the leaders of Nakuru, that this is the very first time we have a fully fledged minister from Nakuru City and County. Our friends from Azimio were purporting that this man is not qualified. But you have seen a person who have risen from being a nominated councillor. Even before he became councillor, we have seen somebody born in Bodeni, one of the slums in Nakuru town, who went to a district day school, Nakuru Secondary School, went all the way to university, became a councillor, became even a sub-county administrator. And this is a person that understands the real issues of housing in this country, especially because of where he is born. The perception you have of the housing sector being an issue of the rich will be brought to rest by this nominee for housing and public works, Madam Speaker. Because this is someone who understands what it means to be brought up in the slum. This is a person who understands when the president says that we are going to have, like that project he was launching today in Kibera, of people paying only 2,500 shillings a month as mortgage and them ending up owning that house, Madam Speaker. I listened to our people here, especially condemn the one Penina Malonza, the Honorable Penina Malonza, and saying that she's not qualified for this position just because, in their view, she did not perform in a particular way at the interview. But on the contrary, Madam Speaker, we have had people speaking very fluent English, speaking big vocabularies. But when those matters were brought to account or were brought to test, it was just opaqueness and hot air. So, Madam Speaker, therefore, we cannot simply condemn Penina Malomba because she did not perform particularly well at that particular interview. Because we have, even this House has approved before candidates who spoke very well and who sounded very convincingly, only for us to realize they were just lazy and very incompetent in the positions that they were offered, Madam Speaker. I very much love the skill set of this cabinet, Madam Speaker, especially the involvement of politicians as cabinet secretaries. And I would like this matter to rest and for once and for all. There is a general attitude in this country that once you become a politician, you become stupid. That once you become a politician, you do not think. That once you become a politician, you become incompetent. Madam Speaker, we still have very competent lawyers. I am still a practicing certified public accountant, even when I am a member of parliament. So the fact that these people have served this country as politicians should not make us think that they are incompetent or they left their professions. We saw the Honorable Kindiki, Professor Kindiki, argue these cases in court, whether it was at the ICC or the recent Supreme Court case for the presidential petition, and we forgot that he was a politician. We saw in him a brilliant lawyer. What happens when these people are nominated to the executive? Madam Speaker, the candidate of Aisha Jumwa and Mithika Linturi that our Azimio brothers and sisters are saying are not qualified, they vied to be governors in this country. What would have happened had they won the seats of governors? Are we saying that we do not need competent people as governors who are the fathers of our devolution, who really spearhead even more functions that the national government does? And therefore, Madam Speaker, I beg my honorable colleagues in opposition, do not just oppose for the sake of opposing. Look where there is reason, and where there is reason, let us oppose reason and forget our political differences. Madam Speaker, I watched the story of Aisha Jumwa, and I really want us to appreciate this. For the very first time, I had a politician admit that she got a D- in her KCSE. Otherwise, every Mheshimiwa is an A student and every Mheshimiwa is a graduate out here. But we had somebody admit for sure that was her grade and be proud of it. And many Kenyans, when they saw her being interviewed alongside the professors, they felt proud that this is a government that gives opportunities to different people based on their capabilities. Madam Speaker, she helps us understand the complications, the complexities of being a woman. Because I'm just imagining the people who probably were involved in marrying her off at an early age, or the father of her babies then, are still going on with her life. And yet, She is here many years later, being forced to account to what happened to so many years ago when it was not a fault of her own, Madam Speaker. I would really urge this House to unanimously, first of all, reject that dissenting view of those members, because they're just trying to play politics even when there is no smallest window of playing politics. And because, Madam Speaker, the President has indicated and given a commitment that he is not going to shield cabinet secretaries from the oversight of Parliament, to the point of suggesting the amendment of a standing orders to allow our cabinet secretaries to come here and stay in account. If you really want to play your oversight and opposition role, wait for these people to be sworn in, wait for them to start working, and question in this floor of this House what they'll be able to do for this country, Madam Speaker. And with that, I am very happy with the skill set of these people, and I pray and beseech my honorable colleagues to pass all these nominees so that this government can start to work, and so that you can start holding the Kenya Kwanza government accountable for the campaign promises we made for these people of the great Republic of Kenya. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Ugenya. Member for Ugenya, Honorable David Ochieng.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I stand here to support the motion, and like other members, with the impending amendment by the Honorable Pukose. Madam Speaker, things happen in this country that people take for granted. There's some time back, a president would just appoint a cabinet, his ministers, and no one would question how they are appointed. But Madam Speaker, in the last week, Kenyans were riveted on their TVs to see for themselves who the president had nominated to become a secretary, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to thank the committee. I personally was very glad to watch my colleagues asking these nominees very probing questions, questions that made Kenyans understand and know the kind of persons they were, questions that made Kenyans understand and know whether they were fit for the office, and above all, questions that made Kenyans understand whether the cabinet is going to understand, the cabinet that we're going to have is fit to serve. Madam Speaker, I'm personally very happy with this cabinet for one reason, that in my 2 terms in Parliament, with cabinet secretaries that were not former members of Parliament, Madam Speaker, we serve as MPs. You would go to a ministry, ask a minister for some support on a road or on a water issue or on a police matter, but the ministers, because they're not being politicians, had no clue, sometimes very dumb, about people even sleeping hungry. I remember at the time I went to a minister to ask for seed for planting, and he asked me, why do you need seed in your constituency? Why can't they buy themselves? Madam Speaker, we've had ministers who don't understand that Kenyans in this country, some of them cannot afford basic items like food, can't afford basic items like shelter, Madam Speaker. But I'm happy because in this cabinet, more than half of them, Madam Speaker, have served with us in this Parliament. They have been MPs or senators, Madam Speaker, and they come from constituencies. They have served people through election, Madam Speaker. I'm certain that they will understand the needs and requirements of our people, Madam Speaker. And that's why, for colleagues who've been in this House that we're going to pass today or tomorrow, Madam Speaker, we want to ask them not to forget where they have come from. Because the reason they've been chosen, in my opinion, Madam Speaker, is that they're able to understand the pulse of the nation, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I had a single issue that I wanted to ask my colleague Wandai and Junet. When they were asking the Honorable nominee for trade, I thought I would hear questions about Kikomi in Kisumu. I thought that I would hear questions about the fish industry in Kisumu being revived, Madam Speaker. And I'm hoping that the nominee for blue economy, nominee for fisheries, the Honorable Mvurya, when passed, is going to spend his time in trying to ensure that the fish you produce in the lake, their processing, Madam Speaker, is done at the lakeside so that people from that part of the country get jobs because of the lake, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm hoping that when we pass the nominee for trade and investment, the Honorable Kuria, that we will have our Kikomi being rejuvenated, that we'll have cotton industry in Nyanza being rejuvenated. Madam Speaker, these are the things that I am hoping, and I'm hoping that the nominees are listening, that my friend, the Honorable Kipchumba, will ensure that the road network in this country is distributed, like he said during the vetting process, that they will be distributed fairly per constituency. And Madam Speaker, this House must hold the nominees to their words. Madam Speaker, the issue of net worth that is being spoken about on the streets there, Madam Speaker, it is for this House to ensure that those who said they are worth 4 billion or 1 billion or 800 million, Madam Speaker, we hold them to their word that we will, as a parliament, check at what they have at the end of their term, Madam Speaker. That is why they're asking the questions. The questions being asked about was not about, today or tomorrow. It's about, we'll be checking in the next 3-4 years what these nominees are worth, whether they are doing the jobs for Kenyans or they have gone there for maths for themselves, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as with any system that's presidential, Madam Speaker, it is important to note that before the president nominated these nominees, Madam Speaker, he considered their competences. He considered their abilities. I'm sure that he even had a conversation with them on the dockets they have been placed at. And that's why I have an issue, especially with the rejection of Madam Malonza. Madam Speaker, if you look at, I've read the report, I've read the engagement between the committee and the nominee, Madam Speaker. And there's nowhere, first of all, where the committee puts a marking scheme, that this is what our marking scheme is about the competence of a nominee. Madam Speaker, I've gone through the report, and the report about Malonza is the same as the report about the other nominees, that the nominee answered questions well, the nominees seem to understand this. I don't find their recommendation, Madam Speaker, speaking to how they engage with the nominee. There's nowhere in that report, Madam Speaker, where the committee says in the report that the nominee could not answer this question or that. There's nowhere where in the report it says that the nominee answered this question wrongly. There's nowhere, Madam Speaker. And so the observation, in my opinion, does not emanate from the report. In fact, I dare say that the recommendation by the nominee on Madam Malonza is basically baying for blood, Madam Speaker. This is not the time for bloodletting. This is not the time. This is not the time to look for blood, Madam Speaker. This is the time to bring together. This is the time to unite. This is the time to ensure that our country moves forward, Madam Speaker, and we cannot move forward, Madam Speaker, if you're going to look for wars where there are no wars, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in this country, I must say this, that in this country, in 2013, our current president and the former president were ICC indictees. They ran, we elected them. Madam Speaker, in this House, we have more than 30 MPs with cases in court. They are members of parliament. That's the truth, Madam Speaker. And so you cannot tell me that because Mithika Linturi has a case in court or Madam Aisha Juma has a case in court, then that is, Madam Speaker, I also dare say with a heavy heart that one of us has been convicted, but he ran, was elected, Madam Speaker, because the Court of Appeal allowed him, because we have put in the law, Madam Speaker, that you are guilty till you are innocent till proven guilty, Madam Speaker. And even after being proven guilty, Madam Speaker, we have said in the Constitution that you must have exhausted all the avenues for appeal. The Honorable Aisha Jumwa, the Honorable Mithika Linturi have not even been tried by any court of law, Madam Speaker. You cannot verify the veracity of the charges, Madam Speaker, and so you cannot hold them on different levels of integrity, Madam Speaker, like we hold others, Madam Speaker. And so any recommendation based on either guilt or perceived guilt, Madam Speaker, of Madam Aisha Jumwa or Linturi, Mithika Honorable, Madam Speaker, for me are misguided. Madam Speaker, as I end, I want to request this House that in my now 10, 11 years in Parliament, what I've seen distinguish a Cabinet Secretary is how they understand the members' needs, how they understand the country's needs, not what papers they have, Madam Speaker. In the past, if you look at the first cabinet, Madam Speaker, the first cabinet of this country in 1963, Madam Speaker, few of them had degrees. Few of them had even worked anywhere, Madam Speaker, but they did so well. And so it would be remiss for this assembly to keep harping on papers. This has papers, this has no papers, Madam Speaker, without the ability, Madam Speaker. We know that some people have served this country so well because of the passion they had for the job. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Michuki, may the Lord rest his soul in peace, did so well as a minister for transport, and I don't think he learned anything, he was an engineer or anything, but he did so well in that ministry, Madam Speaker, that the whole country was saying, bring him back. And so what we as assembly must do is to ensure that after we pass these nominees, we put them to task. Madam Speaker, I'm so happy that we have a president who is so sober, so ready to work, that these ministers, I'm sure in the next 1 or 2 years, they will be gasping for air. Let's put them to task. Let them work for the country, Madam Speaker. The country is waiting with bated breath, Madam Speaker. We cannot wait any longer. Let's pass these guys. Let them get to work. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Kitui Central, Dr. Makali Mulu.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I really want to thank you most sincerely for this opportunity. I want to start by really appreciating the appointment committee, Honorable Speaker, for the work they have done. It's not easy. This is the third time I'm witnessing appointment of CSEs in this country as a member of parliament, and I know it's not an easy job. So the committee did a lot of work. I took time to watch the interviews, Honorable Speaker, and I must say that I agree with the majority leader when he says that even as they were vetting, Kenyans were also sending messages. Others were calling, trying to suggest what kind of questions should be asked, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the questions were in a way, structured in a way that you get academic qualifications, it should do with net worth, it should do with whether you have a case in court, whether you are a citizen or not. And Honorable Speaker, to me, one of the most interesting questions was the net worth of individuals who are appearing before the committee. Honorable Speaker, I've looked through this section of the net worth, and what we have picked, Honorable Speaker, is that actually majority of the Kenyans out there are very rich compared to politicians. And it looks like it's only politicians who are not rich. I don't know whether it's because we share our resources with the rest of Kenyans, or it's because we are not aggressive enough to make wealth. Honorable Speaker, I want to single out one of the individuals who appeared before the committee, and from my assessment, this Kenyan must be very good, Honorable Speaker. That this proves that in Kenya, we still have people of high integrity. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the net worth of Governor Mufuria of Kwale, who has been a governor for 2 terms, he is only worthy 120 million. I'm sure not many Kenyans will believe, looking at the kind of life governors are living through, and the kind of wealth governors have amassed within the short times they have been governors. So I really want to encourage Kenyans to continue working for the public, so that at the end of the day, Honorable Speaker, we provide high levels of integrity as leaders, and at the same time, Honorable Speaker, we make sure that we improve the lives of the Kenyans. Looking at the approvals, Honorable Speaker, you know, Honorable Speaker, I've taken time to read through this report. And there is some consistency in terms of main text of the body of the report and the conclusions. But when I look at my sister, Honorable Penina Malonza, Honorable Speaker, you realize that the main body of the report is inconsistent with the conclusion. Why am I saying that? They are saying very well she is very qualified in terms of academic, she has no criminal case, her net worth is within the range of the rest of them, and all those good things. But then in conclusion, they say that they don't approve her because she didn't have the technical and the administrative capacity, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to remind Kenyans and my colleagues that as a CS, most of the work of our CS is policy direction and strategic direction. And the third one, which is critical, is the political direction also, Honorable Speaker. So when you look at that level, really, I don't think as a CS, you need to be an expert in engineering for you to be the CS transport. And Honorable Speaker, to be very frank with this process, and if we are honest with the process, Honorable Speaker, let's look at it this way, Honorable Speaker. When you look at this report, there are nominees who have been alleged to have criminal cases. Penina Malonza has not been alleged to have any criminal case in this country. There are nominees who have corruption-related allegations, Honorable Speaker. Penina Malonza has no allegation to do with corruption. There are nominees who have allegations to do with murder, Honorable Speaker. Penina Malonza has no allegation to do with murder in this country. There are nominees, Honorable Speaker, who
looking at their papers, there are doubts whether their papers are genuine. Penina Malonza's papers are assessed to be genuine, Honorable Speaker. But despite all this, the people with corruption-related cases, even though there are allegations, the people with criminal-related cases, even though there are allegations, the people whose papers are seen to be not genuine have been approved by this same committee, Honorable Speaker, and then Penina Malonza, who seems to have no issue at all, Honorable Speaker, is being said to be not qualified to be a CS in this country. Honorable Speaker, I must say, these are double standards. And as a parliament, we cannot allow double standards to be played when we are here, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I've had one of the committee members say that as a parliament, we must be doing seem to be doing our work by saying no to some nominees. I want to say this, Honorable Speaker. It is unfortunate, and I don't think we can do that as a parliament, that we can only be seen to be working when one nominee by the name Penina Malonza is not approved and the other nominees are all approved. Fairness demands that, Honorable Speaker, is either we approve all of them, or if not so, then, Honorable Speaker, we also disapprove all of them. Because all of them have even worse cases, allegations, when you compare them with Penina Malonza. Penina Malonza happens to come from my county, Honorable Speaker. And this is a lady I know for many years. She was our first deputy governor of Kitui County. And is somebody we have interacted with. Honorable Speaker, the only omission, the only mistake, this nominee is being not approved by the committee is because she could not make a presentation. Honorable Speaker, I'm imagining one day, because we are talking about inclusion, I was questioning myself, if it happens that we get a nominee who will not be able to talk, or a nominee who cannot hear, facing some disability, the City Minister's House will not be able to approve that nominee because she can't present herself or he can't present himself. So, Honorable Speaker, for me, I think, really, we can't accept these double standards. And that's why I was somehow also not very happy the way the motion was being moved, because it's like my friend, Majority Leader Honorable Kimani Chungwa, was moving the motion, but at the same time trying to move it in an amended form, which he was not telling the House that I'm moving in an amended form. So, Honorable Speaker, I would want to recommend this way. As we approach to the date of voting, which is tomorrow, Honorable Speaker, I think we need to have this motion amended to read as follows: that this House do approve all the names as presented by the committee, including Honorable Penina Malonza. That is my prayer, Honorable Speaker. And if we do that, we will have done justice to this country, so that at the end of the day, we don't seem to disadvantage any of the nominees because of reasons which, from my assessment, don't seem to be strong enough to really reject a nominee. So, Honorable Speaker, as I end, I want to say this, Honorable Speaker, that I want to plead with my colleagues who are in the House and those who will be in the House tomorrow, that when the time comes for voting, let's rise to the occasion, honorable members, and make sure that we approve this nominee who happens to be Honorable Penina Malonza, and who has all the technical qualification in terms of academic qualification, who seems to have worked in many organizations. And to make things worse even, Honorable Speaker, you will read the report. Honorable Penina Malonza has been awarded in this country an award called OGW. Honorable Speaker, I don't know how many members here have that award, OGW, awarded by the President of the country. If we were asked to raise our hands, there will be very few. So I'm asking myself, whoever decided to award this lady, honorable lady, that award, was that person blind? That person could not see that this lady has what it takes to work for this country and serve the public to the best of our knowledge and ability. Honorable members, I once more plead with you that come tomorrow, we are going to approve this lady so that she joins the rest of the nominees and we have a cabinet which can start working for Kenyans. With those remarks, Honorable Speaker, I submit. Thank you very much.
Member for Laikipia, Honorable Jane Kagiri.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this special motion. Madam Speaker, allow me to start by congratulating the appointment committee for a great job that they did and a noble job to the country and to this honorable house. Madam Speaker, I'll also congratulate all the 24 nominees because it's not a small feat that they were nominated in the midst of more than 57 million Kenyans. Madam Speaker, I support the report from the committee, but with an exception on the rejection of the approval of Honorable Penina Malonza. Madam Speaker, I look at Honorable Penina Malonza as an honorable lady who has grown through the process for her to get where she is today. Madam Speaker, let's remember, Honorable Penina Malonza is the first Cabinet Secretary nominee from Kitui South constituency. Madam Speaker, I have listened to those who have spoken before me as they narrated on her presentation and her articulation of the questions that she was asked. Madam Speaker, being a first from that constituency, we need to give her the credit that she has already achieved that feat. She had no predecessor to teach her or guide her on how to go through the process. Madam Speaker, I also continue to read a lot about Madam Penina Malonza, and I learned that she has been a deputy governor for 5 years, which of course was also achieved through hard work. Madam Speaker, it's also good to mention that having lost the position of deputy governor in the year 2017, Honorable Penina Malonza again vied for the position of woman representative in Kitui County. This, Madam Speaker, can only confirm that this is a determined soul we are talking about and a lady who is going to work for this country. Madam Speaker, away from politics, I looked at Penina Malonza's career progression. This is a lady who has grown from being a facilitator to a supervisor to a senior supervisor and eventually a director. Madam Speaker, thereon she goes to become a deputy governor, and when we look at her career progression, this is a lady who is destined for greatness. From deputy governor, I pray and I believe she'll now go into being a cabinet secretary. Madam Speaker, we look at a lady who holds a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, but she has gone ahead and applied to continue studying another master's degree. Madam Speaker, that talks of a willing learner and a lady who is even going to learn in her new position as the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage. Madam Speaker, once in a while we are asked who your classmates were. It is good to confirm that Honorable Penina Malonza received her Order of Grand Warrior Award on the same day that I received mine. So I know she has done an honorable job to this country and she rightfully deserved the award. Madam Speaker, I also read of many acts of charity that Honorable Penina Malonza has done to her community. She has served orphans, she has served women, and Madam Speaker, anybody who lends to the poor lends to God. So let us believe that the prayers from these people are also what have gotten her to where she is today. Madam Speaker, I read on to hear that some of the issues Madam Penina Malonza had was that she could not articulate her answers in the questions she was asked. Madam Speaker, the biggest challenge we have in my community is in regards to human-wildlife conflict and compensation to those who have been affected by those issues. Madam Speaker, when Honorable Penina Malonza was asked that question, her answer was that she should engage the concerned committee to increase budget allocations for her to serve Kenya. That is the right answer that was expected, because whenever we have asked these questions, it is an answer of budget allocations. For me, that was the perfect answer that she should have given. Madam Speaker, as I conclude, I wish this Honorable House takes its time to quickly approve the nominees so that this country gets on moving. The people out there are waiting for us to deliver on our promises, and I believe by us urgently approving the 24 nominees, the country can move on and we can be able to serve Kenyans as we promised them as we were campaigning. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity, and I believe it's an upward projection for Madam Penina Malonza. She now goes on to become a Cabinet Secretary. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I realize we have a lot of interest for this motion. The time is, of course, very limited. If we are able to limit in our speaking, then more people would get the chance to speak. I'll give this chance to Honorable Dido Raso for SACCO.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And let me congratulate you for having appointed to the Speaker's panel. I was on the appointment committee, and I want to really be short in my presentation. First of all, the committee was well guided by the Speaker of the National Assembly. And I think he used his wisdom throughout our deliberation and throughout the vetting process for us to reach, as a committee, without any division, a conclusion that we were largely satisfied, although we were not happy 100%. Madam Speaker, the committee was guided by two documents: the Parliamentary Appointment Approval Act and also the Constitution. Those were the two cardinal documents that the committee was able to use and stick to it. So the outcome, as it were, we are hearing about Honorable Malonza, Linturi, also about Asha Juma. I will shortly talk about those three, but I want to confirm to this House that the large majority of almost 20 were able to satisfy the vetting committee. Like the soap opera, the whole vetting was conducted in the glare of public opinion. So whatever the committee was going to come out with, I think to an extent, even many of you who are following the vetting were able to discern that at this point the committee made the right judgment. Madam Speaker, the issue is about suitability and competence. Yes, there is the bit of education, there is the bit of gender, there is the bit of applicability to that job in terms of educational qualification. But the bottom line, the red tick in the box is, does this particular candidate satisfy for the job he or she had been assigned? I must thank the politicians and congratulate them, because 67% of those candidates who appeared before the committee were politicians, and they gave a sound account of themselves, relevant to the appointment, and also showing that they are able to understand the concerns to the people that they have represented for long. Some are senators, others are members of this august House. So for that reason, what we want from them, like the leader of majority said, and I want to agree with him, in the last government, there was a lot of hubris from cabinet secretaries, a lot of chest thumping from the cabinet secretaries. And if they know the powers of this House, I think they must humble themselves to the occasion, and they must humble themselves to the committees of this august House. I must add that we must also congratulate the President. It is my third term in this House, which comes from the great people of Saku. For the first time, these particular cabinet secretaries were almost handpicked and almost the right people to serve the people of Kenya. We have seen the cabinet in the 11th Parliament and also in the 12th Parliament. The difference is we were asking ourselves, who do we pass among this? But in this particular situation, we are faced with a very narrow margin of only 3. I want to talk about Asha Juma. She comes from the minority, marginalized, a lady whose background many of us will sympathize. Although many of us walk to school without shoes, we slept without eating food, but I think Asha Juma's climb to the top is a study in itself, that we must understand that how does somebody who got married when she was an underage, she dropped out of school, but she rose at some point, she was the head of Kilifi County Council as the chair. She became the women rep. She became a single constituency member of parliament. And then she ran for the governor. And she got 70,000 votes. Those are not few votes. Then we come to Mithika Linturi. Mithika Linturi also, he comes from a rural constituency. Although he appeared to have struggled as a hustler to make whatever he did, I think also his background is also meager. He came from a background where he needed a lot of support, where as a young boy he was a herder. So these particular cases that come before the committee makes the committee to deeply reflect on the individual cases. What some of us have said, and I want to say again, Parliament cannot be the judge and the jury. The committee is to give observation and recommendation to the House. The House can accept it, or the House can reject it. The House can modify the report, can amend it. That is the powers of this plenary, rather than the powers that is given to the committee. Finally, on Musalia Mudavadi, I think the President under the Act has the powers to construct his cabinet in the way he feels that I can run Kenya without any problem or in a way suitable to advance development and also the gains this country has achieved since independence. And for that reason, the order number 1 that had come out a few weeks back indicated clearly what is the role of the chief cabinet minister, so that there is no altercation with the job description of the deputy president. So for that reason, I think there is nothing that this House can see as conflict in terms of application of the DP and the chief cabinet secretary. Finally, it is my wish that the House can take time, study the report, and modify what we have given you as a committee, which had no division at all, but we carried it in magnanimity and without any division. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Samburu West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. And since I have not spoken when you're on that chair, congratulations. And I just want to speak to a number of things since I sat on the Appointments Committee. Madam Speaker, I would like just to say a few things and to probably correct some of the aspersions that have been cast upon the committee. Under the chairmanship of Honorable Speaker, which he did a fantastic job to actually chair that committee, you wouldn't have known who is in the majority, who is in the minority. I believe because we were also even being vetted by Kenyans on how we conducted ourselves, we asked pertinent questions that touch on Kenyans, and we were from diverse counties and constituencies, and so the questions that we asked also reflected the various needs of Kenyans from across the country, Madam Speaker. It is then unfortunate for members to come and say that we were just playing politics, we were biased, or that even as minority, we are settling scores in this House. Madam Speaker, and I thank members of this House for approving us to go and sit in that vetting committee. When we present ourselves to run for office, we are vetted by the public. They know who we are, they know what we stand for, they decide whether you want them to represent them or not. And so the vetting takes place at the ballot. But when we are then presented as a committee to do our vetting, we give our opinion that this is what we think, having sat through long hours. We used to sit from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and you listen to each candidate. We look at the requirements, both the statutory requirements of whether you have the documentation and the things that are needed, and also whether you fit the office. And that is why we ask the questions. Otherwise, we would just then ask you whether you have the EACC document, you have the good conduct, actually degree is not even needed to be approved to be a cabinet secretary. But then we went ahead to ask the questions and to really question your suitability, Madam Speaker. And so I just want to ask the members as they debate that once we presented and we tabled this report, that was our opinion. You will have yours, and you will even have a bigger one because you will actually vote. And so it will be brought, it has been tabled, you will read it, you have read it. You can have a contrary opinion without casting any aspersions to the committee members. And also to my colleagues in the majority side. When now they want, we had a unanimous decision. And now wanting to say it was from the minority side alone, that is also unfortunate because you can't table something and then also want to run away from it or to make us look like we're the bad ones and even make the women more bad because it's a woman on it. These are just our opinions, and you can have your opinion. And I think the majority whip, by thinking you're helping Honorable Malonza by bringing issues of her periods on this floor, you are actually making it worse because we didn't judge her on that. And I just want to tell you this. Those are not the things we were looking at. And you cannot also bring the issues when it becomes on issues to do with women to trivialize it, to become about our moods, our emotions, our periods, that day I didn't wake up on the right side of the bed, that's why I didn't answer the questions right. Actually, you are even making it worse. That maybe what we said in the committee, you're actually propagating it. And so when you discuss issues women, don't trivialize it. Don't go to that level. And that is just something that I wanted to say. Madam Speaker, thereof, I would like to present to this House that just apart from talking about the three nominees, you will have your opportunity to debate and even to cast your vote on what the committee thought about. But I just want to say quickly that one of the observations I also noted in the composition of the nominees is that there was no youth, there was no one who's under 35, and I believe that there are Kenyans, young people in this country, who can actually sit in the cabinet. We also have people living with disability who are, which is actually in our constitution, that when we we constitute, different boards, positions, cabinet. I do hope that His Excellency the President will then consider people living with disability with the subsequent nominations in PSs and other positions in boards, and even the young people of this country. And since he didn't meet his promise when he signed the charter of 50-50 in gender, I hope then he can do it also in the subsequent nominations. But so that as I finalize, there are various issues, because it was not just about who has been approved, and it's also wrong to say that we just rejected as the minority some because they were politicians. We also approved some politicians. So, you can say what suits you, whether you're supporting or opposing. We also approved politicians as a committee. I want to say this, that there are a number of issues that are on this report and that we extensively asked questions about, and you could tell that there are things that Kenyans, because we were also receiving questions from Kenyans, and you can see the things that Kenyans are consistently concerned about. And one of them is the cost of living, and so that once the nominees are passed, and especially those in this House and sworn in, especially those that their docket touches on the economy, those that their dockets touch on food security in this country. We are facing a severe drought like no other. Probably, I'm told, that resembles one of the 80s. We are facing drought in this country, cost of living, the issues of youth in this country. We also have issues of corruption. Kenyans are really watching these nominees. Why we were asking what you're worth. We will be checking also as this parliament to see in the next 5 years what you have been able to get and how you've gotten it. And also issues of following the rule of law, not only when it suits you, but as something, and also the respect of the Constitution. And so as I conclude, for the nominees that will be passed in this House, the other reason why we were vetting you is that we will hold you to account to the things that you said to us, because you didn't just say it to that committee. We were sitting there on behalf of also all these members, so you were actually speaking to this parliament, you were also speaking to Kenyans, and you were speaking also to the international community, because this was really followed. Because when you're a CS, as one of my colleagues has said, you're not the PS. Yes, we agree, you're not the technocrat, but at least you should have a general knowledge and policy of that docket. At least shape, what are you telling us? What is your policy on this matter? And so, to the nominees who will be passed in this House, we will be holding you to account. We will be asking you to account to what you promised Kenyans during that vetting. Don't take it that it was just like a process. It's a process that we were just doing in this House. We have taken note of the promises that you've promised us that you will do. If you're approved by this House and you're sworn in, we will go back and ask you questions as a House, and even as we sit in our committees, to see to it that you live to it, and just so that you may never forget, it is an honor to serve this country in that position. Out of more than 50 million Kenyans, this House, if it approves you, just know that you shoulder a huge responsibility to serve this country diligently, and even to serve the president and the Kenya Kwanza, because they're the ones who have nominated, to make sure that they live to their expectations and to the promises that you made to Kenyans. If you said the Hustlers Fund is going to be without interest, please make sure it won't have interest. If you said you will bring the cost of unga down by 100 days, don't tell us you will now do it after a year. Thank you very much.
County member for Marsabit.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important debate on the approval of the nominees. As I start, I want to congratulate the committee for sitting the long hours and for vetting all the nominees, and for giving us a good recommendation whereby we can all debate on. I also want to congratulate the nominees, because I know they are representing the entire country. I know that they are all capable of doing that. And for Kenya Kwanza to nominate people who are responsible enough, who are qualified, and who we believe will be able to deliver. Madam Speaker, sometimes when we nominate people to different positions, the expectation is that they will serve the entire nation. Some of the areas we come from, like Marsabit, have not been privileged this time to get a CS. But I hope the nominees who are there, who will serve in different ministries, will serve all the areas equally and will be able to give their best to the country. I just want to say to the nominees that they are there on our behalf, on behalf of Kenya Kwanza, and on behalf of the Parliament, and on behalf of the entire country. So our expectations are quite high, and as we all know, Kenya Kwanza as a government, we promised a lot to our people, and people's expectations is quite high. When we put again into consideration the situation that the country is in, whereby economically we are not doing well, the drought is affecting about 23 counties. People's wealth in terms of pastoralists, you know, the wealth that we have, our animals are dying, and we are even losing lives. A lot of attention needs to be given to that area. While even in this other part of the country, Kenyans have suffered economically. And so we need a big effort in order to transform the situation that we are in. And I believe that the ministers will be able, the cabinet secretaries will be able to be agents of transformation, whereby they'll be able to touch every life.
Order, members. The member for Marsabit, you'll have a balance of 7 minutes tomorrow morning when the motion resumes. Order, members. Honorable members, and the time being 7 p.m., this House stands adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, 26th October 2022 at 9:30 a.m.
That indeed the movement I started, which was dubbed Youth for Youth, is unstoppable. I promise them that I will convey their hopes and aspirations, and I will show in word and action that the youth represent the very best of our country today and in the future. I will endeavor to expedite action on all fronts to advance the interests of the youth, the underprivileged, and the minority communities. And on that regard, I rise pursuant to the standing order of 52 to make a statement on the matter of county-wide concern regarding the insecurity situation in Samburu County. Mr. Speaker, months ago, Samburu County has been embroiled in bloody conflicts and rising cases of cattle rustling, which has claimed so many lives, including security personnel and local residents, as well as wanton destruction of property. Sporadic bandit attacks in several parts of Samburu County have become the norm, and the county residents are living in total fear of attacks. Mr. Speaker, in a span of just 1 week, a bandit has led the loss of life of 5 family members. Apart from the recent incident that happened in Loibornkare and Kurkur, more people have lost their lives and others are hospitalized. Further, the livestock have been driven down the hills of a common non-bandit territory in Tiati constituency, Baringo County. Mr. Speaker, the government has remained unresponsive, and as usual, it will issue a press statement on operations in the affected area. We are tired of these operations. The conflict has seen more than 4,500 households displaced across the entire county, and these numbers keep rising as more raids are witnessed. Mr. Speaker, I'm calling upon the government to act against politicians and other leaders who incite violence. Already, certain known names and ID numbers have been submitted, but no action has been taken by the relevant security agencies. I also urge security agencies to take a decisive action against the bandits and their supporters as to restore calm in the region. The mere rhetoric from the government officials is not enough to reassure our locals. Mr. Speaker, the situation is bigger than banditry. It is robbery with violence. It is a global syndicate. Because otherwise, how do you explain that people who are dying of hunger, people who are living in abject poverty, can afford to buy very powerful weapons? I am challenging my colleagues on the government side to join us in speaking in one voice to condemn this matter, Mr. Speaker, because our forefathers said that ignorance is a voluntary misfortune. Mr. Speaker, a lie has many variations, while truth has none. The loss of lives, coupled with the raging famine in Samburu County and other parts of the northern region, have become a full-blown disaster, and we cannot afford to bury our heads in the sand. I want to remind the ruling coalition that a bird that flies off the earth and lands on an anthill is still on earth. The problems of the nation must bring us together by all means. And Mr. Speaker, if indeed there are leaders who are bloodthirsty and want the government to deal, we want the government to deal with them ruthlessly, as the President promised, regardless of their being in either part of the political divide. Someone out there is deliberately poking the nose of the administration, and yet no response. A bandit is a criminal and an enemy of the state. The government must ensure that citizens are well protected within their borders. The state must demonstrate its capacity to deal with internal criminals before they can tell us anything about external criminals. Mr. Speaker, the previous disarmament exercise conducted by the government have not been successful because they were uncoordinated in approach. And we saw members of Samburu County surrendering their arms, but our Pokot counterparts were not disarmed. The result, Mr. Speaker, is that not so long ago, the 46 police officers were massacred in Suguta Valley, and police guns stolen and are still in the hands of these bandits. This has continued to aggravate the perennial conflict in Samburu County. And as a result, mistrust has developed between the people and the very security forces that are supposed to protect the people. The disarmament exercise will likely complicate the current humanitarian crisis in the region, experienced by the sick, the elderly, the pregnant women, the lactating mothers, and students. The conflict continues to negatively impact the lives and livelihoods of the local Samburus, especially the people I've mentioned above. and other vulnerable groups. Mr. Speaker, we have lost a huge number of youth who contribute tremendously to the GDP of this country. The people whom their families depend as breadwinners. Mr. Speaker, due to the grievous nature of and the urgency of the issues I've raised, I request you to refer this matter to the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations for consideration. But Mr. Speaker, although the statement is under the Standing Order 52, because of the sensitivity of this matter, I kindly request you to commit this statement to the Committee on Security to investigate, and I'm willing to provide the committee with specifics of areas of focus. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Now we proceed to the statements under Standing Order 53. We start with the Senator Mohamed Chute, Marsabit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health on the state of operationalization of the NHIF cover in Marsabit County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, disclose the number of elderly and less privileged residents of the county being covered in the medical scheme in the last 5 years, outlining its administration structure. 2, state the amount of public funds allocated and spent in the scheme in the last 5 years, giving the number and particulars of the beneficiaries. 3, shed light on allegation of patients being turned away from the medical facilities on claims of non-payment of the cover, noting the long distances these people travel to reach the nearest facility. 4, apprise the Senate on the state of operationalization of the medical scheme for the workers in the county government, shedding light on a matter of transfer of the medical cover from NHIF enhanced cover to Takaful Insurance Company, stating when and whether the process was tendered, stating the cost quoted, and finally investigate why county government workers are being turned away from the medical facilities on account of non-payment of the cover, tabling evidence of the premiums paid to the scheme for the financial years 2021-2022 and 2022-2023. Senator Mohammed Said Chute, Senator for Marsabit, dated 18th October 2022. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, Honorable Senators, the statement by Senator Zena Lemaletian is referred to the committee, Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations for consideration. Senator Mandawar, do you want to make a comment on the statement by Senator Mohamed Chute?
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much for this opportunity. The statement by Honorable Senator for Marsabit, Honorable Chute, is a matter that needs to be discussed, and as the chair of that committee, Mr. Speaker, let me say that we are already handling another matter where we have invited NHIF we shall be inviting NHIF to discuss with us that matter. It's a statement that was sought by an Honorable Senator of the House, and we shall be glad as a committee to handle that matter also with the NHIF, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, thank you. The statement by Senator Mohamed Chute is referred to the committee, Standing Committee on Health. Senator wa County ya Mombasa, Senator Mohamed Faki, make your statement.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii. Nimesimama kwa mujibu wa kanuni za kudumu namba 53(1) kuomba taarifa kutoka kwa kamati ya kudumu ya usalama wa taifa, ulinzi, uhusiano wa kimataifa kuhusu kuvunjiliwa mbali kwa kitengo cha upelelezi wa jinai. Mheshimiwa Spika, katika taarifa hiyo kamati iangazia yafuatayo: sababu zilizotokea kuvunjwa kwa kitengo hicho kwa ghafla; pili, idadi ya watu walioweza kuuliwa ama kukamatwa na kitengo hicho, na iwapo kuna wananchi wowote ambao walikamatwa na kuwekwa kizuizini bila ya kupelekwa mahakamani. Ya tatu, Mheshimiwa Spika, iwapo serikali itawalipa ridhaa wale wote walioshikwa bila ya makosa ama bila ya kupelekwa mahakamani. Na nne, hatua zitakazochukuliwa kwa vile maafisa waliohusika na uhalifu huu ili dhambi na hujuma kama hizi zisitokee nchini mwetu Mheshimiwa kwa siku za usoni. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa kuongezea ni kwamba majuzi nafikiri kulikuwa na taarifa kwa rais amevunjilia mbali kile kitengo ambacho cha upelelezi wa jinai kinachoitwa Special Unit. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia kutoka mwaka 2013 mpaka mwaka 2022 zaidi ya watu 1000 Mheshimiwa Spika wameweza kupotezwa na wengine kuuawa kinyama na vitengo vya usalama. Mheshimiwa Spika, hawa wote ambao wameuliwa bila ya kupelekwa mahakamani na hivyo hawakupewa nafasi ya kujitetea kwa yale makosa ambayo walituhumiwa kufanya. Mheshimiwa Spika, nikizungumzia Mombasa, waliuliwa kina Sheikh Abudrogo, marehemu Makaburi na wengine wengi ambao waliuliwa kinyama na polisi Mheshimiwa Spika bila ya sababu zozote za kistaifa za kisheria. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, kuvunjiliwa mbali kwa kitengo hicho hakutatatua masuala haya, kwa sababu hii serikali ambayo iko sasa ilikuwa ni serikali ambayo ni nusu mkati yake ya kuanzia mwaka 2013 mpaka 2022. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, walihusika kwa kiwango fulani kuhusiana na vitendo hivi vya maafisa wa usalama. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tunaomba kwamba kamati hii ya usalama wa kitaifa iangalie kwa undani zaidi, na ikiwezekana Mheshimiwa Spika, hata kama ni mapendekezo ya kuwe na tume huru ya kuchunguza masuala haya kama vile Golden Bag na mengineo, ili kwa siku za usoni tusiwe na shida kama hizo, kwa sababu katiba yetu inamlinda mtu yote ambaye yuko katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
That statement is transmitted to the Committee on Standing Committee on Security, National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations. Senator Karungo Dangwa, you're on a point of order. What is it?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I raise on a point of order 98 that might direct you to Standing Order 52, which might also interest you in Standing Order 1. And as I raise my point of order, Mr. Speaker, I would want first of all commend the Senate and especially the Clerk's Office for their ingenuity in facilitating the senators in exercising their mandate, and one of them being protecting the interest of the counties. Mr. Speaker, if you look at Section 4 of the County Government Act, it requires that every county should have its symbol, flag, and emblem. And Mr. Speaker, on this point of order, I would want to request your indulgence, because as you walk towards this chamber, we have 47 flags that are adorned on either side of the walkway. Mr. Speaker, each flag represents a certain county. And I have noted, Mr. Speaker, the flag that represents my county is not a Kiambu flag, and it has never been since. So, Mr. Speaker, I would seek your indulgence, and maybe you can advise me where I can direct that matter, because that flag has never been a county flag of Kiambu County. So probably would want to know how it even ended up here, Mr. Speaker. And if you allow me, maybe I can lay on the floor of the Senate the right flag for Kiambu County, because sometimes it's good for me to, when I see my flag donned here, I feel, yes, I am a member of this Senate. So, Mr. Speaker, you can advise me on that. Thank you. I can table this.
But I'm not around you to table Senator Karungo. Okay, but the next time, Senator Karungo, you know that is a different matter from what we were discussing on dispensing of in this floor. So next time, maybe you raise your issue as a substantive. Maybe a statement. Yeah, statement could do very well. So that the relevant committee could handle. But the administration of the Senate is well seized with your matter. Thank you. Senator, no. Senator Kenyan, are you on a point of order on this? Maybe not. On about the flag and the emblem.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to comment nataka kumshukuru Senator Karungo Adhangwa kwa kuweza kuelewa ya kwamba bendera iliyoko pale si ya kwake, kwa hivyo anaendelea kufanya kazi yake ya oversight, kuangalia kila mahali na kujua kwamba bendera iliyoko hapa si nzuri. Jambo lingine, Bwana Spika, ningependa kusema ni ya kwamba nikiwa kama nakumbuka nilipokuwa mwenyekiti wa ugatuzi, nilikuwa nikiangalia mambo kwa kindani. Bwana Spika, mahali umetoka, nimeona kumekuwa na shida, Bwana Spika, kwa sababu ukiangalia kaunti yako, nimemwona Gavana Mwangaza pamoja na wale madiwani, alipokuwa akijaribu kusoma hotuba yake, wote walitoka mara moja. Bwana Spika, ningeomba, kwa sababu sisi kama seneta kazi yetu ni kuangalia vile kaunti zetu zinavyoendelea. Pengine Bwana Spika, ingekuwa ni vigumu wewe kusema, lakini wacha niseme kwa sababu nimeona si jambo nzuri. Kwa hivyo ningeomba ya kwamba gavana wa Meru pamoja na madiwani wa Meru, wale ma-MCA, waweze kukaa chini, waweze kuongea, kwa sababu si vizuri. Siku ni chache sana, hata mwaka hujaisha kutoka uchaguzi ufanywe. Ni vizuri waweze kukaa chini, wakubaliana na waongee, kwa sababu watatatua hayo matatizo. Kwa hivyo Bwana Speaker, niko katika hoja ya nidhamu, Bwana Speaker.